Hello everyone. Welcome. Welcome back to another episode slash spine number of Chasing Labels. This is episode slash spine number 151, and we are back here once again for another hopefully fun-filled episode of Chasing Labels. I am your host, Andrew Cabral, and we will be once again diving into the world of the boutique label home video landscape. That's a mouthful, but I didn't know how else to describe it. We will be getting into all the things that happened over the last 2 weeks, or at least most of the things that have happened when it comes to the announcements in the boutique label world. Things that are more specific to my taste, more specific to things I want to add to my collection, perhaps things you want to add to your collection, or things that I just find interesting in general. So welcome. Like I said, welcome one and all. It is Halloween week. Halloween is this coming Thursday. It is Monday, the 28th of October. So for those of you who do celebrate Halloween, happy early Halloween to all of you. For those of you who don't celebrate Halloween for whatever reason, you're in a different country that doesn't care about it, or you just don't care about the holiday at all, maybe at least you get some candy or some chocolate or some whatever. But I will be doing my best over the next few days to, I guess, binge watch as much Halloween stuff as I possibly can. I've been seriously lacking in viewing horror films, other than things that I've been viewing here for Chasing Labels. I always put like that stuff as higher priority than just my own personal viewing of things. So I have some things I do want to get to in the next few days. Some, Halloween holiday hallmarks, as they say, and we will, uh, perhaps be getting into some of that stuff. I don't know, but welcome. Welcome, Jeff. Jeff, always here. Thanks for showing up, Jeff. Good evening to you as well. I love the Toshiro Mifune profile picture. I think that's him from Yojimbo. I think that's him from Yojimbo. Speaking of which, we will be talking about Yojimbo later on because Criterion had their announcements literally the day after the previous episode we have. So I think I did the live stream on October 14th. Literally the 15th, the next day, Criterion had their announcements, and we will be getting into that. But some news that happened today, some interesting, like horror-related news, but some sad news. Director Paul Morrissey, who many of you may know of, he passed away. Paul Morrissey is probably most known for directing two films that perhaps many of you have in your collection, and that is, it is. Hold on, let me get them here. Flesh for Frankenstein, and let me see if I'm actually in the frame. Yes, I am in the frame. Flesh for Frankenstein. This is the Vinegar Syndrome release, and then of course also Blood for Dracula, and these are kind of probably his two best well-known films, and these have become kind of horror staples for me in my collection over the last couple of years because these were kind of the first two big Vinegar Syndrome and Severin films releases that I ever got. When I first started collecting Vinegar Syndrome and Severin, these are the first two I kind of delved into. And they're both, I believe, both 4K releases, and both look absolutely spectacular. I know these were highly anticipated for many years. These had been released on DVD, I think, over at Criterion many moons ago, and they were long out of print. So these were quite welcome. There you have this here. Yeah, I remember when this came out. This was a big to do. You got a nice package here from both of them. I just wanted to show these off a little bit. I don't think I ever really did a video of either of these. So you got the 4K and the Blu-ray here for Flesh for Frankenstein. These came loaded with special features, I remember. Just fantastic releases. But Paul Morrissey, who is probably most well known also for working with Andy Warhol. Blood for Dracula, starring Udo Kier. If I can fit all this in the frame. Yeah, I can. Forget how wide the lens is. So I just want to pay a little homage to him because of how important these releases have been to many people over the last several years. So yeah, let me see some other. 'Cause I want to actually look up Paul Morrissey on IMDb for a little bit. Yeah, he also directed a movie called Mixed Blood. He lived a very long life, 1938 to 2024. That's a long time. He was also a cinematographer. He directed a version of Hound of the Baskervilles as well in 1978. Like I said, Blood for Dracula. Uh, he directed a movie in 2010, News from Nowhere. That's very interesting. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that right off the bat. Not the best way to start a podcast, I would say. A little in memoriam, if you will, for director Paul Morrissey. But with that out of the way a little bit, let's get into what has happened over the last couple of weeks. First up here, I want to go early on in the announcement slate for this time. We got two new announcements from Fun City Editions. Fun City Editions is something we've championed here on Chasing Labels many times over the years. We've had Jonathan Hertzberg, who is the founder and owner of Fun City Editions. We've had him here on the podcast twice. And I have many Fun City editions. I've got to catch up on them. I'm like a year behind in a lot of my Fun City collecting. I still need to get Primetime Panic 2, which is a box set they did, and I have to get a bunch of their other releases. I know recently they put out um uh the movie Heavenly Bodies, which I think just came out recently. I saw a lot of people posting that on Instagram and other places. The movie Bad Company starring Jeff Bridges, I want to get my hands on. Um, Stranger's Kiss. A lot of good stuff here. Deep in the Heart is another one I have to get my hands on. They did another box set called Fatal Femmes, which is kind of a cool title, I think. Fatal Femmes. T.R. Baskin is a movie I talked about. I've talked about The Apprenticeship of Duddy Kravitz, which is another film they put out. A lot of good, like, deep cut catalog stuff that Fun City Edition does. And they did that here once again with a movie called Lifeguard and then another movie called Racing with the Moon. But let's take a look at Lifeguard first. Lifeguard stars Sam Elliott as, you may have guessed it, a lifeguard. And he's a lifeguard who is being a lifeguard on a beach in California. And he's an older guy. He's someone who is probably like in his like 30s or so, and he still has the same job that he's had for many years. Like all of the other lifeguards and all the other people around him are like a decade or more younger than him. So he's someone who's just kind of stuck in an arrested development portion of his life where this is what he just likes to do. He just likes being a lifeguard. And he's kind of a laid back type of guy, not a lot of ambition in his life, while literally everyone else his age or everyone else from his generation or people he went to school with specifically, they concentrate on that in this movie. They've all moved on and had lives. They've all gone on and had careers and got married, had families. This is something that is, I think, very true for every generation of people where there are people who take different paths in life. There are people who take the more traditional path of getting married and having a family, having a career and a job. And there are other people who do just things individually and do other things that they want and whatnot. And I've always hearkened on the idea that there's no real right way to live a life. There's no real right way to go down a certain path in life. Like this whole idea of tradition and what you're supposed to do and what society expects from you and all of that stuff, I think is relative nonsense that's been kind of brainwashed into our culture for many years. And the Sam Elliott character in this movie is kind of bucking the trend against all of that, uh, just naturally, really. And that's an interesting theme throughout this movie where he kind of keeps running into people and they keep asking him, hey, well, what are you doing now? What are you doing with your life? And he's like, I'm still a lifeguard. I'm still a lifeguard down at the beach. I'm still there. And they kind of give him a surprised reaction to that because that's not what they're expecting. They're expecting the more traditional answer. But this movie goes through like this character journey of him trying to figure out, does he want more out of his life? Does he want to get a more adult job, if you will? A former classmate of his offers him a job at a car dealership. Does he want to do that job or does he not? Does he want to be in a relationship with an old flame from his school days, or or does he not? You know what I mean? Like, he's struggling between being in two different worlds. His own world that has become a comfort to him, and then a new world that he kind of may want to be in. So it's him going on that character journey. And I actually really liked the movie. I thought Sam Elliott was really good in the film. He was, he looked great on screen. It was Sam Elliott, young Sam Elliott, like in his early 30s, which I've always associated Sam Elliott with being the older, gruff guy that we know and love now. But he's much younger in this film, and I'm hoping that this movie is going to be a discovery for many people. Um, yeah, it's a movie that I was actually really happy that they're releasing. There's no street date on this release yet for Lifeguard. Right now, I think it's only available for pre-order on their website. And I don't think there's a listing of special features. Let me go check their Facebook account really quickly because I'm on their website and there's no listing of special features yet. So let me check Fun City Edition's Facebook page to see if they've announced any special features. I would love an interview with Sam Elliott. Um, it looks like there is, yeah. Hmm. So it looks like there's going to be a commentary track on it. There's no real listing here yet, but it looks like they announced that there's going to be a commentary track on it. Um, This was originally a Paramount film from 1976. That's fascinating. Um, yeah, here it is from October 15th. From the Paramount Library and soon making their worldwide Blu-ray debuts via Fun City Editions, Daniel Petrie's Lifeguard from 1976, starring Sam Elliott, Ann Archer, and Kathleen Quinlan, and Richard Benjamin's Racing with the Moon, starring Sean Penn, Elizabeth McGovern, and Nicolas Cage. That's right, Nicolas Cage is in Racing with the Moon. We're going to get to that really, really soon, so hold on there, because I really liked Racing with the Moon. Um, so they're only available for pre-order right now, and not really a list of special features yet. Other than that, I know that there's a commentary track for Lifeguard, and I know there's a special feature for Racing with the Moon. So we might as well talk about Racing with the Moon. Yeah, I've teased it enough. So Racing with the Moon, like I said, stars Sean Penn, stars Elizabeth McGovern, and Nicolas Cage. Those are the three primary um, people that you'll know from that movie. So, Racing with the Moon is a period piece set in 1943. It's in the midst of World War II. It's in the midst of the United States' early involvement in World War II. And it's a movie that's centered around kind of teenagers of that time. Sean Penn, Nicolas Cage, and Elizabeth McGovern are all around relatively the same age, like late teens. I believe that Sean Penn and Nicolas Cage's characters are going to be entering the army. Like, they're at that age where they can enter the army in World War II, or they can enter the military rather. And it's them kind of their last few days or last few moments of this kind of teen angst wonder before their world kind of really gets, turned upside down, as we all know with World War II. And Sean Penn is Sean Penn and Nicolas Cage are kind of on the poorer side of this town, while Elizabeth McGovern's character is on the richer side of this town, or at least that's the perception of the movie. And one day, um, Sean Penn's character kind of sees Elizabeth McGovern's character working at a movie theater, and he becomes immediately smitten with her, and the movie kind of revolves around um, their relationship going forward from there. Their courtship, their meet cute, the first dates, all that kind of stuff. But it's set in this background of that time period, which is fascinating to me because this movie came out in I think 1983, 1982. Let me see. And what's interesting is that the movie kind of captures that relatively innocent time of the early 1940s, but with also a lot of its political stuff, a lot of its culture, and a lot of those things going on. Let me go check when this movie actually came out. I want to say early 80s. This was kind of right bef this was, I think, right after Fast Times at Ridgemont High, which coincidentally both Sean Penn and Nicolas Cage were in. Nicolas Cage is just a background actor in there. He's not really, in that movie. I think at that time he was still known as Nicholas Coppola, which is interesting. But yeah, Racing with the Moon came out in 1984, so it would have been after Fast Times at Ridgemont High, I believe. And this is kind of you're seeing the early days of Sean Penn and Nicolas Cage as their stars are going to rise in the next several years. So you know what I'm saying? Um, it's interesting kind of seeing movies of that moment, but yeah, it's a small coastal California town. Henry and Nikki are pals from blue-collar families with only a short time before they ship off to World War II. Henry begins romancing a new-to-town Caddy Winger, portrayed by Elizabeth McGovern, believing her to be wealthy, mischievous, and irresponsible. Nikki gets into trouble, which forces the other two to become involved, testing their relationship as well as their friendship between the boys. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting relationship between the Nicolas Cage character and the Sean Penn character. Sean Penn feels um like he has to take care of him, so that leads to a lot of friction between the two. They're best friends, like childhood friends, all that kind of stuff, small town mindset, small town ideals, and you're just seeing kind of them live their lives and seeing them um go through growing pains as young teenagers and going into that adult type phase in their lives. I'm always, like I said, I'm always fascinated with movies that take place during that time in people's lives. A couple of other people you may notice show up in this movie. Specifically, Crispin Glover is a small role in this movie, and this was, of course, before Back to the Future came out a couple of years later. So he's in this movie in a small role, but you recognize him right away. Elizabeth McGovern, for those of you who don't know her, I know her from being she was in Downton Abbey, most recently what I've seen, but she's been in a lot of other films. She's been in I think she was in like Ordinary People, I think was one of her earliest roles. Um, as well as a few other films. She was in Johnny Handsome. Johnny Handsome, which is the film starring Mickey Rourke, one that came out in 1989. She's in that film. Um, yeah, kind of just a career character actress, really. Most notably recently on, like I said, Downton Abbey. I really liked Racing with the Moon. I like that title. The title is very like romanticized and whatnot. But this is once again, there's no street date yet. There's no real special features that have been announced. It says restored from a 4K scan of its original 35 millimeter camera negative. But I think this is another. Yeah, I think it's another Paramount release. But um there is a special feature that I'm aware of. Let me pull it up really quickly. Someone who I know, someone we've actually had here on the channel, I believe, did a special feature for it. Hold on, I'm scrolling down. It's gonna take me a little while to pull this up. I probably should have thought about this beforehand, but once again, things are just things just pop into my head randomly, and I didn't think of these things. So let's see, Racing with the Moon. Oh, I have to scroll forever. Hold on. Ah, no, here it is. So there's going to be a newly recorded audio commentary with Bill Ackerman, but also including my friend Mariah Gates. Mariah Gates, who is the founder of the hashtag Noirvember, which of course Noirvember is literally starting this Friday. So get your film noirs in line. And she is doing like I said, a tandem commentary with Bill Ackerman on Racing with the Moon. So that's really, really cool. I wanted to make sure to mention that. So at least we know that we're getting a commentary on Lifeguard and we're getting a commentary on Racing with the Moon. So that is it from Fun City Editions. Let me move on to what else is going on. Oh, yes. Thank you, Jeff. I saw that up there too. Jeff says, I know her best from Once Upon a Time in America. She was also in Once Upon a Time in America, the Sergio Leone film. Uh, yeah, I saw that on her credits as well. Completely forgot to mention it, so thank you. So let's move on from there. See what else I got here in my notes. Let's save that for later. Let's move over to I don't know. Let's do some individual stuff before we get into some more slates. So, Synapse is putting out a 4K UHD release of the movie Trick or Treat. Now, this is not the movie Trick or Treat, which just got a 4K release from Arrow, and it has a Blu-ray and 4K release here from Screen Factory. This is Trick or Treat, the 1986 film starring Mark Price, Doug Savant, Gene Simmons, Ozzy Osbourne, and Charles Martin Smith. The release is scheduled to arrive on the market next week, so and it is already on the horizon. And this release was so popular that I think it caused the Synapse site to crash this past week. So that shows you how in demand this release is. And Synapse doesn't release a lot of things. At least they don't usually have like a slate of things. They usually release like one or two things at a time. But this was apparently massive. They're getting massive amounts of orders for this. So this may be out of stock already. So give it a check it out. Check to see if it is by this point, and if it is out of stock or the pre-order is out of stock. The websites like Diabolic DVD and Orbit DVD and Grindhouse Video will be getting their stocks in eventually. So keep your eyes peeled on those sites as well. But this is the horror comedy featuring rock gods Gene Simmons and Ozzy Osbourne. A bullied metalhead obtains a mysterious demo record of a recently deceased hard rock star with startling consequences. And this has a 4K restoration. This has two audio commentaries. No, three audio. No, two audio commentaries and an audio conversation. And it's got Rock and Shock, The Making of Trick or Treat, which is an all new retrospective featuring the director and some of the actors. You got in the Spotlight, a tribute to Tony Fields featuring interviews with the late actor's family and friends. Horror's Hallowed Grounds, the filming locations of Trick or Treat with Sean Clark, theatrical trailers and such. But yeah, this is a 3-disc release, and it comes with looks like some art cards. It's got a 4K UHD disc, a Blu-ray, and a CD. I'm assuming soundtrack for the movie. So that is Trick or Treat from Synapse. Let me close that out here so my computer doesn't overheat. Next up, we've got a release from our buddies over at Deaf Crocodile. So Deaf Crocodile, of course, has made their way out of the OCN, the partner labels over at Vinegar Syndrome, and they've been going out on their own. They've partnered up with Diabolic DVD, which I have to keep remembering that because that's where all the releases are now. I always forget that. And they are putting out. I mentioned a list of stuff that they had planned out for the rest of this year and going into next year, and I believe this was on it. It's a movie called The Outcasts. It's getting, let's see, special feature. Yeah, so there's a list of special features here. So it says Deaf Crocodiles provided a promotional trailer for the recent restoration of Robert Wynne Simmons's The Outcasts from 1982, starring Mick Lally, Don Foley, Cyril Cusack, Brendan Ellis, and Hilary Reynolds. The label is preparing a Blu-ray release, which is expected to be detailed shortly. I don't think we've got a date on it yet for The Outcasts. The description here says, in the dark, she felt the key turning in the latch, and a voice spoke to her, "Open the door," whispers Mora, the odd, intense daughter of an impoverished rural family in the early 1800s Ireland, who is accused of witchcraft after she's seen consorting in the woods with a conjurer and fiddle player named Scarf Michael. Her neighbors and even her own family become increasingly consumed by fear and superstition as Mora starts to experience surreal poetic flashes of her latent powers. So we got here a bit of a witch story dealing with kind of witchcraft type panic. So it's recently restored by the Irish Film Institute Film Archive. The Outcast emerged as one of the great gems of the Irish cinema, released for the first time ever in the United States by Deaf Crocodile. And yeah, I'm actually very interested in this. very interesting. It feels like a folk horror. It feels like something that could have been in the new All the Haunts BR set by Severin, which everyone is getting their copies now, and I'm insanely jealous. Insanely jealous that they are. So we got a new restoration. There's a new interview with the director, new interview with the composer, new commentary by producer and professor Rod Stoneman, former head of the Irish Film Board, ultra rare 8mm short film by Robert Wynne Simmons. Um, Actually, there's several films. There's La Verdita di Diavolo, the greatest all-star adversarial of all time, The Bomb Disposal, The Scrolls, and then plus The Judgment of Albion. Those are the short films that are on here, all from the 1960s. Interesting. There's a limited deluxe edition, which has a slipcase, 60-page illustrated book, a new film essay by Irish filmmaker Paul Duane, and a new essay by film critic Walter Chaw. So this is The Outcasts. I wanted to watch this, and I could not find this anywhere. I couldn't find it streaming. I couldn't find it available to rent. I couldn't find it anywhere. Once again, in Deaf Crocodile fashion, they release movies that are just not available to see anywhere. So The Outcast is one of those movies. I know recently Canopy has gotten a lot of their movies available to stream. Uh, a lot of the movies that they put out available to stream. So if you have access to Canopy, you may have access to a lot of the stuff that Deaf Crocodile has put out already. So check there if you do. And if you don't have Canopy, for a library card. It's free, and all it takes is like time. That's it. It takes your time to sign up, and it's absolutely free. And you have access to either Canopy or Hoopla, and it's just more ways in which you can watch movies that you didn't have access to before. But we've got some comments here as well. Josie's here once again. Hello, Josie. Her new watches since the last time. The Girl on the Broomstick from 1972, Beloved, The Crazies, which she mentioned when we did the Unwatched Pile, which is the George Romero film. Class of Nukem High from 86, Needful Things from 93. That's a Stephen King adaptation. An Empty Dream from 1965, Spider Baby from 1967. What else do we have here? The Enchanting Shadow from 1960, The Phantom Carriage from 1921. That's some silent film goodness there. The Old Dark House from 32. Oh, I think that's the James Whale film, if I remember. I think there's a Blu-ray of that from um from Cohen Media Group, if I remember, The Old Dark House. I've been wanting to get that for years. Let's see, yeah, 1932. There's a Blu-ray from 2017 from the Cohen Media Group. I've seen that movie. That movie's really good. If you're in the mood for some kind of 1930s horror that's not Universal Monsters, check out The Old Dark House from James Whale. Good stuff. Let me go back and see what else. Yeah, The Old Dark House, The Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires. That's such a cool. Like that sounds like either a Golden Harvest or a Shaw Brothers film. It really does. And we'll be talking about, I think, some Golden Harvest later. So, okay, put a pin in that. So where was I? Oh yeah, I was talking about Deaf Crocodiles, The Outcasts. So yeah, there's no street date on that yet. At least I don't think. Let me click on it, see if there is. No, actually there is. November 26th. Never mind, I'm sorry. November 26th, 2024. So that's next month. Which is right around Thanksgiving. Right around Thanksgiving. But let me move on from there. Let's bounce into. You know what? Let's stick with this. Let's stick with this. This is the next tab that popped up. So British label Treasured Films, our guys over at Treasured Films, who we interviewed here on Chasing Labels, they put out The Last Hunter. They put out some other films. Are putting out a Stuart Gordon film called King of the Ants. This movie's from 2003, so kind of a later film from Stuart Gordon. Stuart Gordon, of course, most known for directing Reanimator and for directing From Beyond. Both really good films, or really good horror films, I would say. Reanimator is a classic. I think that's just a staple. It's a shame I actually don't own that movie because I really want it. I know Arrows put out a Blu-ray of it. Let me see. I don't think they put out a 4K of it yet. I think that's what I'm waiting for. I'm waiting for a 4K of Reanimator because I feel like it's inevitable at this point that Arrow's going to be reissuing a lot of their stuff in 4K. Uh, that seems to be the case. So they put out a Reanimator Blu-ray back in 2018. It looks like actually yes, yeah. Actually, no, 2018 here in the U.S. 2016 in the UK. Maybe. I don't know what I'm looking at here. 17 or 18, 16, 17 or 18, they put out Reanimator. Arrow did. I'm waiting for a 4K release of that before I buy it because I know as soon as I buy Reanimator on Blu-ray, the 4K is going to be announced. It is inevitable that that happens. It's inevitable. So Stuart Gordon directed Reanimator. He directed From Beyond, which has a Vinegar Syndrome release. I really like From Beyond. It's a great like body horror film. I really want that in my collection, but that's sold out rather quickly from Vinegar Syndrome. At least the limited edition did. Um, so what am I talking about? Yeah, King of the Ants. But King of the Ants is a little different. It's not quite like a Stuart Gordon film. This film, let me get the description here. So Sean, a young house painter, has no direction or attachment in his life when Duke, portrayed by George Wendt from Cheers fame, an acquaintance hires him to spy on and then kill a man who threatens the shady business dealings that Duke and his employer, Matthews, who's portrayed by Daniel Baldwin, one of the lesser Baldwin brothers, who many of you are probably not aware of, are engaged. Uh, so he gets hired by those guys to kill this guy off. The person he's trying to kill off is actually portrayed by Ron Livingston from Office Space and plus a bunch of other movies. So you're gonna recognize people in this movie, like they just kind of pop up, and you're like, "Oh, I know who that is." I found that to be fascinating. But so he gets hired to pull off this hit essentially, and what happens is the person who hired him, Daniel Baldwin's character and George Wendt's character, they renege on paying him. They don't want to pay him, so things get complicated from there, as you can assume. But in usual Stuart Gordon fashion, things get weird. Things get um, uh, surreal. Things get horrific. I would say. But the movie is done on an incredibly low budget. You can tell how low budget the movie is because it feels that way. It looks that way. Some of the acting isn't great. Some of the dialogue isn't great, and unfortunately, the screenplay isn't quite as good as the movie's premises, and it's not quite as good as the movie has the potential to be, I will say. Um, there's good it's the there's good stuff in it, but the people doing it don't really have the ability to um make it where it should be, I would say. But it doesn't mean it's a bad movie in any way. It's not. It's just it's got its shortcomings, and its shortcomings are very obvious to me. But with this release, you get an audio commentary with Nathaniel Thompson and Troy Haworth. Tales from the Ant Hill, looking back on the King of the Ants, a retrospective documentary that runs 43 minutes long. That's really cool. You get Ant Musings, Charles Hickson on King of the Ants, screenwriter and author Hickson on the themes of the novel and the film adaptation. That's 11 minutes long. Ant Music, Bobby Johnston on the scoring of the Ants, a scoring King of the Ants interview with the film's composer. That runs about 8 minutes. A story well told interview with producer Duffy Hecht. And then you got two audio commentaries and archival behind the scenes featurette. So you got a nice little extras package here. And this is Region B locked. The Treasured Films releases are Region B, so you need a region free player to play it. Um, or if you live in Region B land, the UK and such, you're fine. You're fine. Uh, for additional content, there's a double-walled slipcase with brand new artwork, illustrated collector's booklet featuring writing by Michael Doyle and Graham Skipper, web store exclusive Ant Queen magnet limited to 500, and then the web store exclusive A3 poster, reversible fold-out poster limited to 500. The artwork on the cover of this looks really really cool. I will say that looks really 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 awesome. But that's King of the Ants, Stuart Gordon film from 2003, being put out by Treasured Films. Now, when is this coming out? It just says this December. I don't think it gives a date. December 30th. They really got to start putting the dates in this because this is screwing up my mojo here. So December 30th, this is coming out. Let's see. Let me see. Jeff's asked, "How is Dagon by Gordon?" I don't think I've seen that. I haven't seen that film from him. Hold on. Hold on. I think I spelled it wrong. I want to check it. I want to look it up on. Oh, from 2001. Let me see. I actually never seen it. I haven't seen a lot of Stuart Gordon stuff. So I definitely have his stuff to go through, but I've never seen it. So I have to add that to my watch list on Letterboxd. Go back here. So where was I? Ah, yes. King of the Ants. Move on from there. Let's see what else I have here on the list. Let's go to this should be really quick. Poverty Row Classics, King of the Zombies / Miss V from Moscow. This is a VCI home entertainment release. This is 2 films from Poverty Row. So VCI home entertainment will release Poverty Row Classics, King of the Zombies / Miss V from Moscow. The release is scheduled to arrive on the market on January 21st. These are B movies from, let's see. I want to say, well, they didn't really. Hold on, I want to get the dates on these. Let me go back to my Letterboxd diary, because I want to say they're both from the 40s. Yeah, King of the Zombies is 1941, and Miss V from Moscow is 1942, and these are two, these are B movies. These are B movies from the 40s, and they're not great. As I could say, they're not great. King of the Zombies is during World War II, a small plane somewhere over the Caribbean runs low on fuel and is blown off course by a storm. Guided by a faint radio signal, they crash land on an island. The passenger, his manservant, and the pilot take refuge in a mansion owned by a doctor. The quick-witted yet easily frightened manservant soon becomes convinced the mansion is haunted by zombies and ghosts. Yeah, it's played more as like a horror comedy. It's almost like a live-action Scooby-Doo episode done in the 40s because of how, like, silly and over the top it is and whatnot. It's not great. The movie, I think, is 67 minutes long, so it's not, like, an agonizingly long watch. It's just not anything special. And then you've got the other film here, which is, Miss V from Moscow, and this is kind of an espionage type of movie here, set in the shadows of wartime Paris. This 1940s drama, directed by Albert Herman, stars Lola Lane, Noel Madison, and Howard Banks. When a Soviet secret agent discovers her uncanny resemblance to a dead Nazi spy, she infiltrates the enemy and works to save U.S. ships from German submarines. Assisting her on her mission are French underground agents, along with an American serving in the British Armed Forces. So you get a bit of like a resistance type of movie, like a French resistance type of movie. And it's fine. To be honest, I could only find it in public domain quality. So that really kind of hindered my ability to watch the movie and absorb a lot of what was going on in it. But it's not really much to talk about, unfortunately. So 2 lesser films, 2 B movies of the 1940s. More interesting historical pieces than I think actually good films, because there was a whole like B movie market in the 40s that doesn't really get a lot of highlights when it comes to Blu-ray releases and things like that. So I thought this was an interesting release for me. I'm always like kind of underground 40s films. Now there it is. And I don't think they announced anything in the way of special features. I don't think there's going to be much in the way of special features. This is 2 movies on 1 disc, probably type of situation. So there's not much to write home about. Yeah, they don't even tell you if it's one disc or not. So that's that. Moving on from there, um, let's go to Kino. Let's talk Kino, just because that's the tab that popped up. So Kino has a few announcements, and I want to get into them. Some of these are going to be familiar, so I'll just brush past them. Um, oh, is it? Jeff says Dagon is another Lovecraft adaptation. Yeah, because Reanimator is a Lovecraft adaptation. Uh, for those of you who didn't know that, I think yeah, it is a Lovecraft adaptation. Coincidentally, I live right next to the cemetery in which H.P. Lovecraft is entombed. So Halloween time is very interesting around here. We have a cemetery next to a river, so it's very kind of a spooky vibe going on over there. But a lot of it's an older cemetery with a lot of large tombs and things like that. But I believe H.P. Lovecraft is buried over there. I'm pretty sure many people go and visit his grave this time of year and whatnot. That's little little fact that I don't think anybody really cares about. Um, so moving on from there, let me go back to um, Kino. So on December 10th, Kino's releasing a 4K UHD release of Hatari. They announced this months and months ago, and we're finally getting some information on it. It's a 2 disc edition, a 4K UHD disc, a Blu-ray disc, coming out in December. They still didn't give us the day. Oh, December 10th. December 10th. It's got a new audio commentary by film historian and writer Julie Kirgo and writer slash filmmaker Peter Hankoff. It's got a new HDR Dolby Vision Master. That's really cool. And yeah, Hatari had been released years ago on Blu-ray from, I want to say, either Paramount. Yeah, I think it was Paramount. Yeah, back in 2014, they released a Blu-ray. Warner Brothers released a Blu-ray. I think Paramount re-released it in 2017. Either way, I heard that Blu-ray did not look very good, so I never bought it. And this is a Howard Hawks film. So for those of you who are Howard Hawks enthusiasts, this is probably the release to get. This 4K UHD release that's coming out. It's going to look light years better than that release. And I think that release, did it have anything in the way of special features? It had nothing. Yeah, other than the film's trailer, the disc contains no extras. Yeah. And apparently the DVD was also bare bones as well. So this Atari release is uh well deluxe compared to those things. Um Let me see. I'll make sure that's still going. Yeah, so this is the movie starring John Wayne, directed by Howard Hawks. John Wayne is running like a safari or a zoo in like the African desert. Let me see, and I think it's a bit of it's a romance film as well. Let me just look this up really quickly so that I refresh my head. Yes, a female wildlife photographer arrives on an East African reservation where a group of men trap wild animals for zoos and circuses. And John Wayne runs this zoo, and he and her have this contentious relationship, which turns romantic. You can assume. You can put things together after that. Um, and yeah, I think this was shot on location in Africa, which I guess gave John Wayne a vacation. So moving on from there, that's Hatari. Um, Internal Affairs. This is getting a 4K UHD release on December 17th. This movie has already been released on Blu-ray from Imprint. It was in one of their neo noir box sets, one of their neo noir box sets. But this is, of course, a 4K versus that being a Blu-ray. I'm not sure if it's the same special features. The only special features we've got on here is an audio commentary with film critics Elaine Silver and James Rossini. The Clever and the Corrupt interview with director Mike Figgis. That's awesome. His Most Dangerous Weapon interview with screenwriter Henry Bean. One Bad Cop interview with co-composer Anthony Marinelli. This is the film starring um, Richard Gere and Andy Garcia, and it's a cop drama. It's a cop drama. We talked about it long ago when it was first announced on Blu-ray from Imprint, and I know many of you probably have already had the movie. I think it's been streaming actually for a while. Yeah, the movie came out in 1990. Uh, Yeah, Keen Keen Young Raymond Avia joins the Internal Affairs Department of the Los Angeles Police. He and partner Amy Wallace are soon looking closely at the activities of cop Dennis Peck, whose financial holdings start to suggest something shady. Corrupt police action going on there. So that's Internal Affairs. So for those of you who don't have that movie yet or don't have that box set, perhaps this is the way to go. I think I've said this many times before. A lot of the stuff that Imprints put out, whether it be in sets or individually, Kino's putting them out as well. Sometimes the transfers are different, sometimes the special features are different, but I think they both have a deal with Paramount, so they're getting all the same titles. They're just putting them out in different order. So one does one, the other one does the other, and vice versa. So it's kind of a mess, and all depends on what you want to collect as a collector or whatever the case may be. Next up here is actually one that I already have the imprint release of, and that is The Great Gatsby, the one starring Alan Ladd from 1949. Um, so this release here is the imprint release. For those of you listening at home, this is spy number 220 from Imprint, and this is I've had this for a while. It's Alan Ladd. I love The Great Gatsby. The Great Gatsby is one of my favorite books of all time, so I automatically, have a fondness for the adaptations, I should say. This here comes with an audio commentary by professor and film scholar Jason Agnay, Alan Ladd, The True Quiet Man documentary from 1999, Professor Sarah Churchwell on The Great Gatsby from 2023, film critic slash writer Christina Newland on The Great Gatsby from 2023, on-stage interviews with Alan Ladd's son, David Ladd, conducted by Alan K. Rhodey. So that's what's on this release. Whether Kino carries over all of these or some of these, I think remains to be seen. Stay tuned on Chasing Labels because we will, of course, talk about it whenever that happens. And it just says coming soon on Blu-ray, so it's not getting a 4K UHD master. This one here was a 1080p high definition presentation of a 2022 4K scan from the original camera negative. So I have to assume that the Kino release is the same thing, transfer wise. We just need to know what the special features are going to look like for that. Next is a movie called Hyperspace, which is getting a 3D Blu-ray release. Now, 3D Blu-ray has kind of gone the way of extinction. It's gone the way of the dinosaur. It has been long gone now for a couple of years, yet we still keep seeing a 3D release get released here and there, some archival release by some companies. So 3D restoration by 3D Film Archive, who I think are the only people doing the 3D type of stuff now, from 4K scans of the original camera, original 35 millimeter positive print elements. Okay. This movie stars Chris Elliott and Paula Poundstone. I know nothing about this movie. Let me get the description of it from Letterboxd. So Hyperspace. It says the fate of mankind hangs in the balance. Because of a small navigation mistake, Lord Buckethead lands on Earth instead of in a galaxy far, far away, but he is still looking for the princess and the secret transmissions. Sounds like a take on a Star Wars if I ever heard one. So, yeah, I know nothing about this movie other than that it was in 3D in the 80s. 3D tends to come and go every few decades. It was big in the 50s, big in the 80s, big in the late 2000s and early 2010s, and is now going away again, seemingly. So, will it ever come back again? I don't know. I don't think so. I just feel like people have moved on to other things that have been more visually rewarding. 4K specifically now is kind of the big thing. I know they have 8K TVs. I don't see 8K being a format, a physical format later on. I think 4K may be the end of the physical format realm. I don't know. Who knows what could happen? I've been wrong in the past, so don't hold my opinion too highly. So that is Hyperspace. Moving on from there, there are two films. I already talked about this movie called Monty Walsh, which stars Lee Marvin. I talked about it, I think, last time. These movies, this is coming out December 17th. And then there's another movie here called, um, what's the other movie called? Shout at the Devil, starring Lee Marvin and Roger Moore. So Shout at the Devil is a movie that I wanted to watch but didn't get the chance to. It's directed by Peter R. Hunt, came out in 1976. It's a World War One film. During World War One, an English adventurer and an American elephant poacher and the latter's attractive young daughter set out to destroy a German battle cruiser which is awaiting repairs in the inlet just off of Zanzibar. The story is based on a novel by Wilbur Smith, which in turn is very loosely based on events involving the light cruiser SMS Königsberg, which was sunk after taking refuge in Rufiji Delta in 1915. So, loosely based on a true story, you could say. This stars Lee Marvin, Roger Moore, Ian Holm is in the film as well. It is currently streaming on places like Pluto TV and Tubi, and Plex as well. So, if you want to watch the movie, you can. It is 147 minutes long, though. Just if you don't like longer films, perhaps it's not for you. So that is Shout at the Devil. Let me move back here. These are both, these are, like I said, both coming out December 17th. Shout at the Devil has a new audio commentary by Lee Marvin biographer Dwayne Epstein and filmmaker / historian Steve Mitchell. Monty Walsh has a new audio commentary by Lee Marvin biographer Dwayne Epstein. And it looks like Monty Walsh is a re-release. And it's the same transfer as the 2015 re-release, but encoded at a higher bit rate on a dual layer BD50 gig disc. So you get a bigger disc, higher bit rate, so it's going to look a little bit better. Essentially, they've been doing that a lot with a lot of re-releases. That reminds me, I have some Kino stuff to show you at home. Next up is Rambling Rose. So Rambling Rose is another one of these films which I believe just got an imprint release as well. And Kino is now putting out their version. Rambling Rose, starring Laura Dern. Yeah, so Rambling Rose just came out in July from Imprint, and we're now getting a release in December 10th of Rambling Rose. This is a film from 1991. Let me see who directed this. Directed by Martha Coolidge. Who directed Valley Girl, if I remember correctly. And it's got a new audio commentary by film critic Adam Naiman, audio commentary by director Martha Coolidge, and then a director introduction and some outtakes. It's got a slipcover, and that's about it. An interesting movie starring Robert Duvall and Laura Dern. I talked about it when the Imprint one was announced. It's a very interesting movie of a young boy looking back at his youth, in which Laura Dern's character came to live with his family, and his kind of infatuation and interest in her as a young boy in adolescence, and also kind of the relationship she brought to their family, as well as the disruption and whatnot. Interesting kind of retrospective type of movie, if I remember correctly. Next is I mentioned this last week. The Beast Within is a Kino Cult number 22. There's another Kino Cult that I'm going to be talking about here in a second. But first up, I want to talk about The Killer is Loose, the Joseph Cotten film from 1956. I saw this years ago. So this has got a new audio commentary by film historian / screenwriter Gary Graney. And The Killer is Loose. Let me see if I can jog my memory of this. The Killer is Loose. My quest to watch every Joseph Cotten film is ever ongoing. So, he was no ordinary killer. She was no ordinary victim. This is no ordinary motion picture. A savings and loan bank is robbed. Later, a police wiretap identifies bank teller Leon Poole as the inside man. In capturing him, Detective Sam Wagner accidentally kills Poole's young wife, and at his trial, Poole swears vengeance against Wagner. Poole begins his plans to get revenge when he escapes his captors. So you got a bit of a revenge film going on here. And Joseph Cotten portrays Detective Sam Wagner. and Wendell Corey portrays Leon Poole. So Wendell Corey's trying to get a revenge on Joseph Cotton. That's The Killer is Loose. Directed by Bud Bedecker. Which reminds me, there is currently right now a flash sale going on at the Powerhouse/Indicator website. It's going to be running from today all the way up until next Monday, November 4th, 2024. So those of you who are interested in Indicator, interested in some of their titles, perhaps you will find some sales over there. I thought I would mention that. They put out a Bud Bedecker box set years ago, and they put out other Bud Bedecker films. That's what kicked my memory into gear. Association, essentially. Association. What else do we've got here? Yeah, I agree, Jeff. Chris Elliott and Paula Poundstone, a hell of a duo. That is a hell of a duo. Especially like early on in the 80s. That's an interesting duo. Let's see, where was I? Oh yeah, we're still in Kino land. We just talked about The Killer is Loose and The Claim we've already talked about before, coming out December 17th now. This is that drama starring Wes Bentley, Mila Jovovich, Natasha Kinski, Peter Mullen, and Sarah Polly. I talked about this in depth before, so I don't need to get into that. A Blood and Lace. Okay, so Blood and Lace, this is Kino Cult number 23. So we just had 22, which was The Beast Within, and now we've got number 23. So they're moving right along with these Kino Cult line stuff. And I know probably many of you have been collecting them right along. And this has an audio commentary with Richard Harlan Smith, alternate opening titles, and that's it. So Blood and Lace, I actually watched last night. It was one of the last movies I watched. It is available to stream on Tubi currently. And I think this movie was in the wrong aspect ratio, but I was assuming it was the only aspect ratio available to watch it in. This movie stars Gloria Graham is in the movie. Hold on, let me get you guys more details on this, just because it felt like I was watching a TV movie from the 70s, but it's not a TV movie. But apparently it played on a lot of drive-ins during the 1970s as a double bill with some other kind of schlocky type of film. So shock after shock, as desire drives a bargain with murder. After her prostitute mother and her John are beaten to death while they are asleep in bed, teenaged Ellie Masters is sent to an isolated orphanage run by a mysterious woman and her handyman. So the mysterious woman is portrayed by Gloria Graham, and her handyman is Len Lesser. Len Lesser, character actor all the way up until he passed away, I think in 2011. Many of you may know him as Uncle Leo in Seinfeld, and he was in a lot of TV show, like one-off episodes here and there, pretty much from the 90s all the way up through the 2000s and up until he passed. But he was Uncle Leo in Seinfeld. That's how I think many people will remember him. And these two people run this orphanage, and it's a scam. They're just taking in kids, treating them terribly just to get the welfare checks, just to get the checks from the government. And then they're using the kids as like labor to like make things or to like manufacture things in order to make even more money. But they don't care about the kids at all. They basically work them until they die. They don't care. But they're also trying to keep it on the down low and cover it up from the government as well. But this film was from 1971, and Gloria Graham, I remember she was, of course, one of the great femme fatales, I think, of all time. She was in so many like film noirs. Let me just tell you, I've always wanted a Gloria Graham box set, but her career's just been so all over the place that I don't think we'd ever get a box set of any kind. She was in It's a Wonderful Life. She was in A Lonely Place, with that's the Humphrey Bogart film. She was in The Big Heat. That's the one. That's the real big film noir that she was in. She was in that, and I think she's also in The Bad and the Beautiful as well. But she was in Chilly Scenes of Winter later on in her career. She was in The Greatest Show on Earth. She's in the Joan Crawford film from '52 called Sudden Fear. Odds Against Tomorrow, which I actually have on Blu-ray around here somewhere. Where are you? Odds Against Tomorrow. All the way here at the bottom, of course. Right here, Odds Against Tomorrow. She was in Odds Against Tomorrow. You can see her name down here. Gloria Graham. Yeah, she's in so much stuff. Passed away really young. Passed away in her 50s, I think. I've always been a big fan of Gloria Graham, so seeing her being like this really nasty character in this is interesting to me. Kind of a treat. But like I said, this film gives off like TV movie vibes from the 70s, but it's not. It was just a drive-in staple. Something you would probably put on a double bill with some other type of B movie, if you will. And yeah, it's not a great film, but fascinating to me. Like, it's not like, it's just interesting that you got this type of movie at that time. Like I said, available to stream on Tubi, available to stream on Plex, available to stream on Amazon Prime Video, but it looked rough. It looked really rough in the wrong aspect ratio. So this release from Kino must be incredible. It doesn't give any details here about what the transfer looks like, but it's got to be better than what's currently streaming. It has to be. But yeah, so this young woman who's recently orphaned goes to live at this kind of scummy type of orphanage, and she's trying to escape. She's trying to expose them. It's kind of funny because most of the kids, a good 90% of them, don't look like they are kids at all. They all look like they're actors in their 20s or maybe even close to 30 in this movie. And it just like, yeah, it's kind of absurd, but you just go with it. You know what I mean? You just go with it while you're watching it. But moving on from there, let's move on to Law and Order. Let's swing to the other side of the spectrum. Let's swing away. Law and Order is a Western from the pre-code era of movies. It is a Western from 1932 starring Walter Houston. Walter Houston and Harry Carey is in the film as well. And it's a fictional take on the Wyatt Earp story. The Wyatt Earp story in Tombstone, which I'm sure many of you have seen adapted over and over again, including the great adaptation of the movie Tombstone in and of itself. So you've got a fictionalized version of that Wyatt Earp story with Walter Houston as the fictionalized version of Wyatt Earp. Let me get the actual release, the actual synopsis of this. Law and Order, 1932. Finding this wasn't easy either. Finding pre-code movies in good quality is kind of a rarity. So this is going to be a nice release just for that. I loved pre-code Hollywood stuff. Before the Hays Code got put in, Hollywood, movies didn't really have a code they had to live by. They could just kind of do, not whatever, but you know what I'm saying. They could do more than they could get away with more than after the Hays Code came in. And certainly, of course, years later when the MPAA thing guidelines came in and all that stuff. We did a whole episode on the Cinema Discovery Project on censorship in movies and kind of the history of the pre-code era and the Hays Code and the MPAA and all of that stuff. Fascinating stuff if you look at the history of it all. But Law and Order, pre-code stuff, a legendary lawman and his cohorts set out to restore order to the dangerous streets of Tombstone, Arizona. And you've got Walter Houston portraying, what's his name? Portraying Frame Johnson. Frame Johnson is the kind of fictionalized version of Wyatt Earp. I think this was based on a book of some kind. Coincidentally, his son, Walter Houston, I think wrote the dialogue for the son of Walter Houston, John Houston, wrote the dialogue for this film. If you're not aware of the Houston family, they are a Hollywood family. Walter Houston, his son, John Houston, of course, became, the famous director who films we all know of, like The Maltese Falcon and Treasure of the Sierra Madre, plus a bunch of other movies. He did some acting as well. His children, Angelica Houston and Danny Houston, of course, actors and actresses in their own right. To this day, that family persists. And there's, oh my goodness, there's another Houston, isn't there? There's another Houston as well. Hold on. Let me get my Houston family tree up. Yeah, I forgot his first name. Of course, IMDb decides to go a little wonky on me. Okay, IMDb is going a little crazy on me, so I have to exit out of it. Um, but hold on, I'm trying to remember what movie he was in. So, yeah, there's another Houston. If I could find it, it'd be nice. Hold on, let me go back to IMDb because this is gonna drive me absolutely crazy. Pretty sure people at home are. Yeah, you're right. There's Humboldt Horror Honey. Thank you. There's Danny Houston. There's Angelica Houston, but I thought there was another one. I'm thinking of the actor in Boardwalk Empire, but I'm not sure if he's related to them. I don't know if you know the show Boardwalk Empire. Jack Houston. Maybe not. Maybe I'm just completely. Yeah, relative. Yeah, Jack Houston is the nephew of Angelica Houston. There we go. So I was right. So see, I told you there was another Houston. So Jack Houston, I know him from Boardwalk Empire, but he was in House of Gucci recently. He was in The Irishman actually. He was in that Mr. Mercedes Stephen King adaptation series. He was in Hail Caesar, the Coen Brothers film. But I remember him. Yeah, I thought he was in. Yeah, he was in Ben Hur. He played Judah Ben Hur in that Ben Hur movie they came out with in 2016, the one that was obviously horribly whitewashed. Yeah, the one that was directed by oh boy, Tikmur Bekmambetov. Yes, I remember him being in that. But yeah, interesting. Yeah, so as I was saying, the Houston family. Walter Houston was also is in Treasure of the Sierra Madre, which was directed by his son. Like I said, I thought Walter Houston was incredible in Treasure of the Sierra Madre. But yeah, they're one of those long-standing Hollywood families, like the Barrymores. That's another family that's going back, decades and decades and whatnot. Drew Barrymore, of course, being the current descendant of that family and whatnot. But yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting how those families all connect with one another and whatnot. But Law and Order is an interesting pre-code western um, that I think is kind of setting precedents for other westerns that would come after it. That's what I think is so interesting about the movie. It's not so much the fact that it's a good film, but that it's setting precedents for a lot of westerns that would precede it, that would come out after it. I don't think Stagecoach had come out yet, so John Ford hadn't really started doing his westerns yet. But it feels very much like a John Ford western before John Ford westerns. If I could make that assumption. Um, But let me see, what else do we got here? That's it for Law and Order. We have this movie called Undisputed that's getting a 4K UHD release. This is a film directed by Walter Hill, who of course directed movies like The Driver and The Long Riders, Southern Comfort, Johnny Handsome, 48 Hours. There's a whole um, box set from Imprint of Walter Hill films, plus a bunch of other releases of Walter Hill stuff. We've got a lot of Walter Hill things over the last several years. Um, yeah, he also directed The Getaway as well. Um, so this is starring Wesley Snipes, Ving Rhames, Peter Falk, Michael Rooker, Wes Studi's in the movie as well. I haven't seen this film because this just got announced yesterday, so I didn't have time to watch it. And I would have, if I had the extra time. The one thing I of course didn't have, something we'll cover next time will be the Vinegar Syndrome and the partner label stuff. Those will be dropping this Friday. Um, so obviously not being included in this end of the month episode like they've been included in the last few months, which is going to give me plenty of time to get into all of the stuff that they've got coming up. Of course, next month we'll have the Black Friday sale over at Vinegar Syndrome, which I know a lot of people will be gearing up for. So we got a lot of things cooking in the next few months. But this movie called Undisputed by Walter Hill came out in 2002. Monroe Hutchins is the heavyweight champion of Sweetwater, a maximum security prison. He was convicted to a life sentence due to a passionate crime. Iceman Chambers is the heavyweight champion who lost his title due to a rape conviction to 10 years in Sweetwater. When these two giants collide in the same prison, they fight against each other, disputing who is the real champion. Interesting. Kind of reminds me of the movie The Hurricane a little bit. Not quite the same context, not quite the same story, but I get boxing vibes from it, essentially. There's another movie we're going to talk about when it comes to boxing. So also keep that in mind as well later on. But yeah, I definitely want to see this. I probably want to get this as well. I need more Walter Hill. But let's see. I think, oh yeah, one more we got here called For Love or Money, 1963. Now imagine a romantic comedy starring Kirk Douglas from the 60s, and that is For Love or Money. So Kirk Douglas gets hired by the matriarch of this wealthy family to basically fix up her daughters with suitable matches in order to get married. So he basically gets hired to be matchmaker, and he's going to get paid an exorbitant amount of money to play this matchmaker guy. And he ends up finding suitable matches for I think the younger two daughters, but the oldest daughter he finds a match with as well, but he also ends up falling in love with her, and she ends up kind of falling for him as well. So they end up having this kind of back and forth romance type of thing going on. Meanwhile, he's trying to hook her up with someone else in order for him to make money. It's kind of a sly, not great thing. And you can kind of assume where things go from there. Where are you? I'm looking for it on my diary on. There it is. So yeah, it like I said, it's a romantic comedy starring Kirk Douglas, which you don't think he could kind of pull off, but he does. He does for the most part. The movie stars, like I said, Kirk Douglas, Mitzi Gaynor, who just recently passed away. Unfortunately. Thelma Ritter is in the film as well. She plays the matriarch of the family who sets this whole thing into motion. Thelma Ritter, great actress. She was in, oh goodness, she's in All About Eve, but she's in Rear Window as well. She's in Miracle on 34th Street. She's in Pickup on South Street, which is a really underrated. I think that's a Sam Fuller film. Yeah, that's a Samuel Fuller film. That's a good movie. That's a really good movie. Great for Noir Vember for those of you interested. But in Rear Window, she plays the woman who's, I guess, the caretaker of Jimmy Stewart's character. She comes in and like bathes him and like cleans up after him and stuff and whatnot. She's just great. She gets so many great one lines in movies. She's also in Pillow Talk. Just a great character actress of her time. Really fantastic. But she sets this whole thing into motion. Yeah, it's a fun movie. It's a fun movie. I think Julie Newmar's in the film as well. Leslie Parrish. Yeah, it's an interesting movie. Interesting, fun movie. You don't think Kirk Douglas could pull off the charm, but he does. He's kind of a rough around the edges type of actor. If you've seen his work is very aggressive, very masculine, very, harsh. So you don't think he could pull off the charm of this type of movie. This type of movie would be better for like a Rock Hudson, a Cary Grant. Like that's this type of role. But he pulls it off. Let's see, what else do I got here in the Kino realm? I've talked about that already, but that's it. But before I move on from Kino, I do want to mention I did go back to the Kino sale that's happening at Barnes & Noble this month. I don't know if any of you saw my short video that I did, but I picked up a couple of films there. The 4K UHD of uh, North Dallas 40. I picked this up. This coincidentally is also, I think, put out by Imprint as well, just on Blu-ray, I think. Crybaby, the 4K UHD of Crybaby. Now, this is a Blu-ray upgrade for me. I have the Blu-ray that was put out a few years ago, but I had to get this. It's a John Waters film. It's a John Waters musical set in the 50s. It's kind of his version of Grease, done by John Waters. It's a unique film, as all of his films are. Next up is the Kevin Costner film, also starring Gene Hackman, No Way Out, 4K UHD of that. Um, yeah, you guys can see that's in relative focus, right? Yeah. And then I've got the Jean-Claude Van Damme film, Sudden Death. Picked up the 4K UHD of that. Oh, it's almost falling out of the bottom. I want to make sure my things are in focus here. And then last, but certainly not least, is a film I actually talked about here on the podcast. That is Garbo Talks, starring Anne Bancroft. Well, she's in the film. She's not in the film a lot. But this film is directed by Sidney Lumet. That's why I got it, because I have to get all the Sidney Lumet films. I got to get all my Sidney Lumet films in a row here because I got a few that aren't on the shelf yet, and I've got to work some magic to get them on the shelf. But those are the ones I picked up at the Kino Barnes & Noble sale when I went there for my second time. Thought I would show those off. And yeah, let's see. Let's move on from Kino. Let's move to, you know what? Mondo Macabro. Humboldt Horror Honey. I remember last time or the time before that, you had mentioned that you were interested in the Mondo Macabro releases. So I thought to specifically cover them this time. And interesting films we got coming up here. So one of them was actually something I talked about already. And I don't know if I just jumped the gun last time talking about it and they hadn't really officially announced it yet, or if we just got more info about it and an official release date and all that kind of stuff. But we've got 4 releases from the guys over at Mondo Macabro. We've had Jared Honor here on the podcast before, who is over at Mondo Macabro, and who's kind of the mouthpiece for them over there. And we've got 4 announcements. First up here is Cafe Flesh from 1982. We've got Cafe Flesh. This is a 4K UHD release, actually. And it's got a 4K restoration from best surviving 35mm elements. Audio commentary with director, designer, and co-writer Steven Sayadine, also known as Rinse Dream. Interview with director, designer, and co-writer Steven Sayadine, also known as Rich Dream, and then interview with co-writer Jerry Stahl, also known as Herbert W. Day. Interview with writer and performer Jessica Stoya. Archival on-set B-roll making of footage. Holy hell, I can imagine what that's going to be like. So this is a 2-disc UHD BD combo. Exclusive slipcover. It's got a booklet with new writings on the film by Heather Drain, Daniel Bird, Eric Peretti, and archival text by Jerry Stahl. 2,000 copies. 2,000 copies, and these are selling fast. I didn't realize how fast Mondo Macabro stuff sells out. So this is this is an interesting movie. First one is something people have been absolutely begging for since we released Dr. Caligari a couple of years ago. Steven Sayadin's surreal adult masterpiece, Cafe Flesh. So Cafe Flesh is an adult film. This is an adult film. Humboldt Horror Honey, yeah. Nice. I'm not too familiar with how Mondo Macabro goes. I don't know if there's a bundle. I don't know if you have to buy them individually. I didn't know, how that goes. All I know is that they're selling fast. They're selling real fast. Because they are so limited, and it is kind of a 2-man operation there. I would assume that there are not a lot available. And yeah, looking forward to them all. Well, I can tell you, I've seen Cafe Flesh. And I've seen Bohachi Bushido. Bohachi Bushido we talked about before here on Chasing Labels, but I'll run that down a little bit. The other 2 I haven't seen, but Cafe Flesh is an adult film. It's an adult film with lots of pornographic scenes, a lot of pornographic scenes. It's a dystopian film that takes place in the future. And apparently, in this dystopian future, there are two groups of people. There are sex positive people and sex negative people. And apparently, 99% of the population are now sex negative people, where anytime um, they try to do anything sexual, they get incredibly sick. So they can't do it. And then 1% of the population are sex positive. So they can, be sexual and all this kinds of stuff. So the 1% are basically forced to perform public displays of sexual things for these sex negative people in these like clubs, essentially. And the movie is just a series of those performances, loosely based around some type of plot that's not really relevant. It's not really relevant. What you're here to see is the mind-numbingly wild displays of like sexual uh performances that are happening, because the performances are not just you're not just watching people do things. There's like they have different themes. Like one is like a schoolhouse theme where people are dressed as like some people have like dressed as pencils and some people are dressed as other like school supplies, and they'll be having these sexual situations going on. And you see the movie, like I said, it's an adult film. You will be seeing everything, everything imaginable in every form. So if you're someone who is not into those types of things, if you're somebody who does not watch adult films or watch adult entertainment in any fashion, this movie's not for you. It really isn't. But it's fascinating that they try to structure a plot around this weird dystopian movie, and this movie takes place all in this one location. And yeah, it's a wild film, wild film. Uh, yeah. Oh, you're right. So yeah, I was just gonna say Cafe Flesh is sold out already. And I knew that yeah, the numbers were like super high in terms of the updates they were giving. But Cafe Flesh, I did see that. I was surprised Cafe Flesh sold out because of how wild the film it is. But it's apparently it's been in high demand for years. So there you go. Let's see. Next on the list is um oh, this is the movie I've already talked about. This is Bohachi Bushido, Code of the Forgotten Eight. I talked about this several episodes ago, a while ago, and I thought they had already announced it, but I guess they hadn't. So our second big release is the utterly insane Euro Guro slash Chambara Freakout Bohachi Bushido, Code of the Forgotten Eight, directed by notorious cult director Teruo Ishii. So just to give you the rundown here, the legendary actor Tetsuro Tanba stars as Shiro, a master swordsman who is weary of the world of samurai honor and samurai killing, and so attempts suicide rather than finishing a fight. He is saved by the Bohachi clan, a gang of pimps who have forsaken all honor and whose cynicism outruns even his own. But ultimately, he even tires of their nihilistic worldview, leading to a final showdown in the snow. That final showdown is awesome. But the movie is very graphic, specifically when it comes to violence towards women. I think I mentioned it when I talked about it before. Violence towards women is pretty high in this film, so if you're not into that, perhaps this film's not for you. So it's taking kind of the sexploitative world and meshing it with the samurai world. That's kind of what this movie is. This is a 4K restoration from the original camera negative. It's UHD slash Blu-ray disc combo. The Blu-ray disc is region A. The UHD is always region free if anybody cares. Audio commentary by Japanese film expert and author Tom Mess. Archive audio commentary from filmmakers J. Taro Sugasaku and Tako Nakano. Interview with Shinya Tsukamoto about the film and the career of Teru Ishii. Archival interview with actress Yoriko Hishimi. Archival interview with Taro Sukisaku. Two-disc edition, like I said. So those are the two I've seen. The other two I haven't seen, so I won't be able to talk much about it. Girl Slaves of Morgana Le Fay. This is a French film from 1971. This is let's see. Our third release is something that's been in the works for nearly a decade. Finally, the HD debut of the dreamy 1970s French fantasy classic, Girl Slaves of Morgana Le Fay. See, when you say French Fantastique, that automatically piques my interest because I think of the Fantastique, I think of Jean Roland, and I like that style. So I gotta watch this movie eventually. Um, so this has a 4K restoration, audio commentary with writer director Bruno Gantillon, new interview and archive interviews with the same director, new interview with actress Dominique Dalpierre, short film by Bruno Gantillon, an artistic couple. Two disc edition. Let's see. Driving in their car through Avignon or Avernay. One summer, two young girls, Anne and Francois, find themselves in the kingdom of the mythic Morgana, queen of the fairies. That sounds interesting. That sounds fascinating to me. That's all I need to hear to get me to be relatively interested in seeing this. Um, yeah, I do want to check that out. And then next we've got um, uh, The Punishment from France, 1973. And finally, another long in the works project, The Punishment. We originally announced this 70s Gallic shocker more than 6 years ago, but the film went into dispute hell almost immediately after. But with some help from our good friends at Vinegar Syndrome, it's all been sorted out, and we could not be prouder to unleash this early example of French extremity upon an unsuspecting world. Interesting. So when I think French extreme films, I think of films from the 2000s. I'm thinking of High Tension, thinking of Martyrs, those types of movies. So we've got a little 70s version of that here. And yeah, so it says Brit is a high class Paris escort pimped out by her older girlfriend Francois after being abused by a client. Brit rebels. Well connected Vice Lord Manuel takes her to a seedy hotel in Lyon in the south of France. There she is locked in an empty room and forced to take part in a series of bizarre acts inflicted on her by a procession of Manuel's clients. Hence the title of the movie, The Punishment. I'm assuming this movie is not for the faint of heart. That's seems to be my gist when it comes to any Mondo Macabro film. Not for the faint of heart, not for everyone in particular, but if these films are your cup of tea, Mondo Macabro is here to fill your cup up, I guess. Good metaphor there. Good metaphor. So yeah, those are all available from Mondo Macabro's site right now, as Humboldt Horror Honey just said, and as I checked, they are in Cafe Flesh is already sold out. Uh, but you may be able to find them in other places. I'm not quite sure if they may end up on Diabolic and on Orbit DVD or Grindhouse Video. I'm not quite sure when it comes to Mondo Macabro. Because they're so limited and they're such a small company. I don't know if they end up on there. Oh yeah. So, Humboldt Horror Honey, do you have any films picked out for Halloween viewing? I'm hoping my Radiance Dye set arrives. I've been seeing a lot of people getting that set the last couple of days, so hopefully your set arrives either tomorrow or Wednesday. Or could arrive on Halloween. I don't know. But I have like usual traditional Halloween horror stuff I watch. For example, my favorite horror movie is like Halloween. So I've got Halloween here. I actually just recently bought the 4K. Thing is, I didn't buy all the 4Ks of Halloween when they came out because I've owned them so many times. I've owned Halloween on DVD, on Blu-ray 3 times. Yeah, on Blu-ray 3 times. So when the 4K came out, I'm like, I will get it eventually, and I did. So I'll probably be watching this either on Halloween or before Halloween. Um, I do want to watch like Trick or Treat. I really wanted to get that horror film. Um, What else? Mondo will release a standard release of Cafe Flesh for sure. I feel like they will. They especially with something this popular that's selling so well, they probably will. But other horror movies to watch that I'm thinking of, um, gotta look at my horror section. There are a few things I wanted to get that I didn't quite get this year so far. Hmm. Now you're making me think on the fly here. Oh, Psycho! I always watch every year. Um, like I said, Halloween I watch every year. I do want to rewatch a couple of other things. I'm just looking at my thing over there. Like, sorry, actually, I did want to rewatch both of these. I wanted to give both of these a rewatch. Flesh for Frankenstein and Blood for Dracula. I want to give both of these a rewatch because I haven't seen them in a couple of years. Yeah, I gotta get some other stuff. Some other stuff I've got to get my hands on. Yeah, you know what it is? There is so much to choose from, and then um I can't decide if I want to watch new stuff or old stuff. I can't decide if I want to watch new stuff or old stuff. And I'm looking just desperately at um my horror section, and I'm looking at everything, and I'm like, I've seen everything. I've seen all of them. So I'm like, oh, what else to watch? Yeah, I think I do want to get Maxine. So I kind of want to do probably an X Pearl and Maxine rewatch, maybe like a triple feature there. Just because to see how the whole trilogy plays out back to back to back. That'd be kind of cool to do. I really want to watch Your Next, but I haven't got the second sight release yet. I'm looking at Doctor Sleep right now. There was some Mike Flanagan news recently. I don't know if anybody heard the news, but they're going to be doing another adaptation of Carrie. This time, Mike Flanagan's going to be doing it, and I'm curious about that. I know a lot of people did not like the previous adaptation of Carrie, the one by Chloe Grace Moretz. I think Kimberly Pierce directed that. I personally liked it. But I also finished reading The Dark Half, which is a Stephen King book. I've already seen the adaptation of it. But I may give something like that a rewatch. But like I said, there's so much other stuff. And I don't think I told you guys, I recently rewatched Crimson Peak, the Guillermo del Toro Crimson Peak in 4K, because I bought this earlier this year, and I wanted to give it a rewatch because I hadn't seen it since the movie had come out. Being a gothic romance and going in knowing that it's gothic romance, I think really changed my perspective on it a little more. I already thought it was good to begin with, but going into it knowing that, I liked it even more. The set design and just the world and the art design of Del Toro's films are incredible. Maybe I want to give The Devil's Backbone a rewatch. I feel like that movie and Crimson Peak are very close to one another in terms of what they are as films. The idea that you're watching them thinking they're one thing, and they kind of do that Hitchcockian twist where they become something else. I think that's really cool. But let me get back to what I was talking about here. Let's see. Let me go over to Imprint. Let's see. I can get rid of this tab. I can go over to Imprint because Imprint did their new Asian releases, or they did their Imprint Asia releases, and this is where we're getting a little bit of crossover with some other stuff that's already been released. So we've got this stuff's coming out in January 8th. Excuse me. Is Erotic Ghost Story Trilogy, Zhou Train, and YOLO, which is a 2024 film. And I got to see the Erotic Ghost Story trilogy. So the Erotic Ghost Story trilogy, those films are already being released or have already been released in a set put out by Shout Factory. So let me make sure to get the right name of the box set. And what's interesting is I watched Erotic Ghost Story after I watched Cafe Flesh. So I went from a movie that has actual sexual things in it to a movie that is it has simulated things in it. You know what I'm saying? So the dichotomy couldn't be more different in terms of what I was seeing on film regarding sexual content. And it's interesting. Erotic Ghost Story has a lot more plot in it than I thought it would. I thought it would be more exploitative, but it's not. But the box set that it is currently available in, actually it's coming out November 12th, is Golden Harvest Volume 1 Supernatural Shockers. It has Sex and Zen, Erotic Ghost Story 1, 2, and 3, Dr. Vampire, and Robotrix. So you can already get those movies in that box set there, or you can get them in the Imprint Asia release of just the trilogy set. And you've got, like I said, all three of those movies. And these sensual supernatural category 3 films, the first of which takes influence from The Witches of East to explore the lustful desires of spirits, demons, and humans alike. Each film includes brand new special features, including audio commentaries and interviews, as well as an alternate Mandarin language, packed with plenty of swordplay, weird and wacky comedy, vivid and surreal imagery, and plenty of provocative pleasure. Dive into the colorful orgies of the erotic ghost story trilogy. Now, the press release here on Blu-ray.com doesn't give you the details in terms of what's on each disc. I have to go over to Imprint's actual website to do that. Let me bring this up here. Hold on, let me go. I want to get up a list of special features. Ah, there they are. So, the erotic ghost, the box set from Shout Factory did come with special features on each film in that box set, including the erotic trilogy, erotic ghost story trilogy. Yeah, there's a lot to go through here. Hold on for a second. Let me prep my eyes for some viewing. My eyes are starting to dry out on me as I stare at the screen for too long. Let's see. So we got an audio commentary by cult film critic Ian Jane. New from erotic to extreme, costume drama meets category 3. Interview with film historian Paul Afonaroff. Alternate 95-minute Mandarin language version. For Erotic Ghost Story 2, we've got a commentary by film critic Callum Waddle, interview with art director Raymond Lee and art assistant Cyrus Ho, interview with writer Casey Chan. Alternate 92-minute Mandarin language version. Erotic Ghost Story 3 is a new commentary by filmmaker Callum Waddle, new interview with assistant Cyrus Ho, alternate 77-minute Mandarin language version. Now, for those of you who are interested, Erotic Ghost Story 2 and 3 are available to stream right now, actually, I think on Tubi, but not Erotic Ghost Story 1, which was kind of odd to me, because they're all put out by Shout Factory. I thought that they would all be available to stream on there, because I think Tubi and Shout Factory have some type of deal and whatnot when it comes to streaming and things like that. But apparently that's not the case. So that's interesting. I wanted to check. It looks like, just straight off the rip, the extras are different between the Shout Factory set and the set from Imprint when it comes to the erotic ghost story movies. Yeah, it's different. It looks like different audio commentaries. Yeah, different. It's different. Very different. They're almost all different. Okay. I just wanted to check that really quickly. So once again, we are caught between a rock and a hard place when it comes to these movies. But let me talk about Zhou Yu's Train. So the erotic ghost story, I only watched the first one. It's like The Witches of Eastwick done in an erotic way. Let me go back. Let me go back and actually give you some details. See if they give me a description. You know what? I probably won't even do that. I'll just go to my Letterboxd. Now I'm trying to decide where to go to find the best description for it. The best synopsis, as they say. Where are you? Nope. That's not it. I think I scrolled too far. Ah, there it is. So, 3 vixens have meditated for 1,000 years to to be able to shed their animal natures and become human. For the final month of their rigors, they have moved near a village where women pray to a god of fertility. One sister visits the god's temple and thinks lustful thoughts. As she leaves, a priest confronts her, warning of dire consequences and demons that will try to stop the victim's transformation. Soon, the youngest sister saves a poor scholar from bandits and becomes enamored of him. Each sister visits him, and before long, the youth has made love to all three. After they invite him to stay with them, the playfulness takes a scary turn. Where can they turn for help? So yeah, that's what happens. So it's three witches who all get enamored by the same guy, and things kind of go from there. It's the premise of the Witches of Eastwick, the movie version. I read the Witches of Eastwick, the book, very different than the actual movie. Didn't know that until I read it. But yeah, um, no, I haven't watched any yet. Have you watched anything from your Folk Horror 2 box set yet? No, I haven't, Humboldt Horror Honey. Um, I need to. I do need to. Um, it's yeah, it's a monumental set, to say the least. I've been actually what I wanted to do and what I started doing is I was going to watch. I had to go back to the Hammer horror, not the Hammer horror set, the Hammer sets from Indicator, and I wanted to start making my way through those. Because I watched everything in Hammer Volume 2, and I wanted to watch the things in Hammer 3 and 4 and 5 because they could see, and even 6 looks more horror based than just regular Hammer films. That's what I wanted to do this month, and that's what I didn't get to yet. Maybe that's what I will also do in the next couple of days because those movies are rather short and I can go through them, one by one. Um, I watched one of them in the Hammer and the Hammer set Volume 3, and I've got to watch the others. Maybe that's what I'll do. But yeah, that set is going to be something I want to take my time to get through. Um, as it is, I didn't watch a lot in the first set. I got to watch the stuff in the first set too. I watched a couple of them when we talked about that when that first set was announced. And then some of them I had already seen. But yeah, that's something interesting. That's something I kind of want to do, and I want to do something for the channel for that. Um, actually, well, I will be talking about Severin. So good thing you brought that up. I'll be talking about Severin probably after this. Um, but back to Imprint. So Zhou Yu's Train stars Gong Li. So beloved actress Gong Li stars as two characters in the passionate romantic drama written and directed by Sanju. Based on the novella by Baekun, the film was critically acclaimed on release in 2002, was nominated for 2 Golden Rooster Awards. Twice a week, Zhu Yu, a beautiful artisan, takes the train to faraway Chongyang, where she indulges in a torrid affair with Chen King, her poet lover, a mysterious young woman who bears a striking resemblance to Zhu, seems to be following her every move. That's kind of what the movie's about, kind of not. So this woman, Zhu Yu, she begins a relationship with a young, timid, artistic, gentle poet, and they have a relationship that's going on. But he lives far away, so every 2 weeks she takes the train and goes to visit him. But while she's on the train one time, she meets another man. She meets a man who is, I believe, a veterinarian surgeon. And he is someone who is kind of the exact opposite, but not so much the exact opposite, but he's more of who she is as a person. Whereas the poet is someone who is different, but she ends up having a relationship with the veterinary surgeon guy as well. And so she's stuck between these two worlds and these two loves. And what we get here is someone who doesn't know where to turn, doesn't know what she wants out of her life, what she wants out of her love life, what she wants out of a relationship, and it becomes very messy, as you would imagine. But the movie is not a messy in kind of a tortured, trashy way or anything like that. It's a very beautiful movie. It's a very like the tone of the movie and the pacing of the movie is very laid back. Reminds me of kind of like a Wong Kar-wai type of thing going on here. Um, or and it's a movie that doesn't really give you a concrete answer to all of those life's questions. I'm sure many of us have had, you know, things in our lives where we've fallen in love with people who are very different. Perhaps we fall in love with people at the same time who are very different. I don't know, depending on who you are. But it's an interesting romantic type of film. Um, yeah, I actually really liked it a lot and asked a lot of questions, but didn't really give you any answers because sometimes life doesn't have a lot of those answers. Um, Next is a movie called YOLO from 2024. And this is a movie that is directed by Li Ying. Li Ying also stars in the film as the main character. So Yi Ling has been staying at home for many years, doing nothing in particular after choosing to withdraw from society and close herself off from social circles. One day, after several twists of fate, she decides to live life in a different way. That's kind of the movie in a nutshell. It's one of those movies where you've seen the premise before. You've seen it done many times. You've seen it done in American films, you've seen it done in foreign films, you've seen it done in all kinds of movies. You can see it done on TV shows where someone goes from kind of down in the dumps, the doldrums of life, the kind of having no direction in life whatsoever, and then due to certain circumstances or due to an epiphany or due to hitting rock bottom, decides to bounce back from that and you know, regain control of their lives, build up their lives in a positive way, and pursue some type of dream or some type of goal or some type of something to get their life on track. And this movie is that feel good story. It is that feel good story. I like the movie for what it is, as predictable as it is and as kind of perhaps, you know, overly sentimental as it can be. I enjoyed it. Maybe I'm a sucker for those types of things. I don't know. But this movie takes place around the woman portrayed by Li Ying, who ends up doing that through her pursuit of boxing. I mentioned boxing earlier in this episode, and so this is that connection. She does it through training to become a boxer and to get herself in physical better shape, to get her mind in and mental better shape, and to turn her life around through the world of boxing. And the actual director trained for a year straight, particularly for the role, to go from someone who looks a certain way to someone who looks like, physically in better shape. And there's a whole montage in the closing credits of her working out and all this kinds of stuff to get in that physical condition. And yeah, she ended up dropping like 100 pounds or so. And it's a massive physical transformation and a massive mental transformation as well. And it's one of those kind of feel good stories. I believe it's based off of, I think it's a remake of a drama from 2014 as well. But this is a more of a comedic version of that, and it's kind of comedic in its awkwardness because there is a lot of awkward moments in the movie. The character does get in like a pseudo romantic relationship at points that feels more awkward than romantic and more one sided than anything. But I like the movie. I like the movie. It's called YOLO. Needs a better title though. I feel like in 10 years and 20 years time, the word YOLO or the acronym YOLO is not going to be remembered by people because you know how slang just goes in and out of fashion so often. Stuff that was cool when I was younger is no one mentions it now. No one uses it now. So they needed a better title for the movie. Yeah, the 2014 film was called 100 Yen Love. That was the name of that movie. Um, and apparently this movie is a huge international box office smash of 2024. Apparently it's made like $500 million. Didn't know that. I didn't know that because I don't know if it got a release here in the US theatrically. But apparently around the world it's a rather big hit and a big hit in China. A big hit in China, which is a pretty big market. Um, but yeah, that is it from Imprint. So moving on from there, let's see what we're doing for time. Let's see if I have to pick up the pace. Okay. So let's go to Severin right now. So because Severin only has two releases, two announcements actually. They have um a a collection of movies called Hardwood: The Adult Features of Ed Wood, 3-disc Blu-ray. So later on in his career in the 70s, Ed Wood made adult films. And this is a collection of those movies. Includes three Edward 70s adult films, plus a Wood scripted bonus movie, and 7+ hours of special features. So disc one is Necromania. Disc two is The Young Marrieds, and disc three is called Shotgun Wedding. Um, and yeah, I'm just checking the special features here. It doesn't really list much, but I guess just to have these movies on Blu-ray in general is kind of the special feature in and of itself. Although no, there are special features. My bad. There's an audio commentary with Edward Summit host Greg Javier and Spicy Goldman of Capriccio World. Interesting. Disc 2 has an audio commentary with Edward Summit host Greg Javier and porn archaeologist slash collector Dimitri Otis. Uh, and then there's, I think, something called Sex Loops with Subtitles by Ed Wood. Interesting. And then the third disc here, which is Shotgun Weddings, has the incredibly strange film show season 2, episode 4, Ed Wood Jr. And then has Dana Gould and Bobcat Goldthwait talk Ed Wood's Twilight era. I saw a clip of that. I saw a clip of that online where they were talking about Ed Wood's adult films. The Mad Genius of Ed Wood interview with Carl Abramson, author of In Between the Lines, essays on the occult, magic, and seductive zombie strippers. A brief encounter with Ed, interview with filmmaker Fred Olen Ray on his ill-fated Wood collaboration Beach Blanket Bloodbath. What a name of a movie. What a name of a movie. Cool. So that's those three movies, those three Ed Wood adult films. What a piece of history this is going to be. Let's see. It says now restored uncut from Ultimate Sorcerer Elements for the first time ever. In both hard and soft versions. It says Necromania in both hard and soft versions stars Renee Bond and amazing Chris Wells Coffin in a tale of weird love shot in 2 days by Ed while wearing a pink baby doll outfit. Ushi DeGard stars in the only house in town, a soft-core saga of nonsensical dialogue and orgiastic depravity. Wood's bizarre final film, the Thought Lost, The Young Married, is presented in hard and its never before seen soft versions as a bonus. J. Pat O'Reilly and William Charlotte star in Woodpen exploitation rarity Shotgun Wedding, plus over 7 hours of special features that include a conversation with Bobcat Goldthwait and Dana Gould. Produced exclusively for this collection. That's cool. So that is that. And then the other release is Scala. So Scala, or the incredibly strange rise and fall of the world's wildest cinema and how it influenced a mixed up generation of weirdos and misfits. 3-disc Blu-ray, Blu-ray with slipcase plus a calendar insert and membership card. This is a documentary I've been trying to watch for months and could not find it to stream or rent anywhere. So between the politically volatile years of 1978 to 1993, London's most infamous repertory movie theater slash pleasure dome screened over 4,000 mind-warping films that influenced a generation of remarkable writers, musicians, filmmakers, actors, artists, and activists. Co-directors Jane Giles and Ali Catterall now reveal the incredible true story of the Scala cinema, featuring rare archival footage, dozens of film clips from Scala favorites, and interviews with former Scala audience members, guests, and staff that include John Waters, Ben Wheatley, Jaw Wobble, Kathy Unsworth, Mary Harron, Kim Newman, Nick Kent, Isaac Julian, Matt Johnson, and more, with 13 hours of bonus material such as the new documentary Splatterfest Exhumed, directed by Jasper Sharp. Yeah, this is a heck of a release. So yeah, the first disc is the Blu-ray packed with special features. Second disc is a Blu-ray with more special features. Third disc is a Blu-ray with more special features. Just unbelievable package here of special features. Yeah, I think it's got a slipcase. Yeah, slipcase as well. So that is Scala. They are putting out an yeah, I think that's it. They're putting out some other stuff here, but these Satan's Sadists, slash Angels, Wild Women. These are films that are in the Al Adamson set already. I think they're just releasing them individually. Yes, yes, they are. So that is it from Severin. Let's move on to Umbrella. Yeah, Umbrella's got 5 releases. The Crying Game, You Were Never Really Here, Filth, Spring, Summer, Fall, Winter, and Spring, and then Azrael. Azrael is the new film from this year. That came out this year, if anybody's interested. But yeah, these are all films I've seen actually. So hold on. Let me refuel here a little bit. Go through these a little bit quicker since I know them well. So Filth is the movie starring Filth is the movie starring James McAvoy from several years ago. It is based off of the Irvine Welsh book. Yeah, the Irvine Welsh book. Irvine Welsh wrote Trainspotting. He wrote the book Trainspotting. And yeah, let me just read this. So a bipolar, bigoted junkie cop manipulates and hallucinates his way through the festive period until he finally meets his match himself. Scheming Bruce Robertson, James McAvoy, is in a standout performance. A bigoted and corrupt policeman is in line for a promotion and will stop at nothing to get what he wants. Enlisted to solve a brutal murder and threatened by the aspirations of his colleagues, Bruce sets about ensuring their ruin as he turns his colleagues against one another. By stealing their wives and exposing their secrets, Bruce starts to lose himself in a web of deceit that he can no longer control. So he plays this super deprived scumbag of a guy who's basically just out to screw everybody for his own benefit. And in all of the kind of like, filthiest, scumbaggiest ways. And he ends up kind of like going crazy because of it, essentially. So think of like those wild scenes in Train Spotting where Ewan McGregor's character is kind of hallucinating and all this kind of stuff because he's on drugs. That happens in this movie to James McAvoy's character. James McAvoy is fantastic in this movie. I haven't seen this movie since it came out. Oh goodness, when did this come out? Like 2015, earlier than that? 2013. I haven't seen this movie in 11 years. So my recollection of it may be a little off. I just remember James McAvoy being crazy in this movie and just bonkers. This is getting I think is this a 4K UHD release? Hold on. Or is it just a Blu-ray? I think it's just a Blu-ray. But it's got a bunch of special features that are new stuff, like new interview with cinematographer, new red carpet interviews, it's got interviews with McAvoy, with Irvin Welsh, audio commentary with the director. It's got all kinds of good stuff in here, and it's coming in that collector's edition that Umbrella likes to do now with their booklet and extra stuff and all the goodies and whatnot. That's how they do all these releases. But The Crying Game is a movie directed by Neil Jordan, who directed the movie Mona Lisa. He did direct that movie Mona Lisa, the one starring John hold on, I'm starting to fade here. It's Criterion put it out a few years ago. I actually have it in one of my stacks over here, I think. Bob Hoskins, starring Bob Hoskins. That's a really good movie if you haven't seen it. Criterion put it out on Blu-ray a few years ago. That's a really good film, but he directed The Crying Game. Neil Jordan did it as well. And let's see, I haven't seen this movie in years as well. An unlikely friendship develops between IRA member Fergus and Jody, a British soldier he is holding captive. When the hostage taking ends up going horribly wrong, Fergus escapes and heads to London, where he seeks out Jody's lover, an enigmatic hairdresser named Dill. As secrets unravel and personal loyalties are tested, The Crying Game explores the complex dynamics of trust and human nature in a world filled with hidden truths. It's got a new audio commentary with filmmaker and author Jane Giles. The Big Secret 2024 interview with producer Stephen Woolley. And I want to say The Crying Game has a Blu-ray release here. It does. No, it doesn't. Oh, okay. There's no Region A release of The Crying Game. I know there's one in the UK. Well, there's not one here. And now there's one in Australia. Actually, there's several in Australia. Nope, they're all from Imprint. No, they're all from Umbrella. Yep, they're all from Umbrella. Okay. I explained that. Yeah, it's been many years since I've seen that movie, but I remember being very good. You Were Never Really Here is getting a 4K UHD release. You Were Never Really Here is the Lynn Ramsey film starring Joaquin Phoenix. I thought this movie was incredible. It's one of the best movies I saw from 2017. One of my favorites of that year. Joaquin Phoenix I thought was incredible in this movie. A traumatized veteran unafraid of violence tracks down missing girls for a living when a job spins out of control. Joe's nightmares overtake him as a conspiracy is uncovered, leading to what may be his death trip or his awakening. Lynn Ramsey has got to be one of my favorite living filmmakers. She is incredible. Her work is really, really good. Ratcatcher, Morven Collar, You Will Never Really Hear. We need to talk about Kevin. Really good stuff. Really good stuff. This release is very tempting for me because I have the regular Blu-ray release that came out here several years ago. Not much in the way of special features. This here has a new audio commentary with writer and critic Simon Morado, Wilderness of the Lost Soul, a video essay by Brent Tilley, interview with music supervisor Catherine Greaves, radio interview with director Lynn Ramsey. There's another interview with Lynn Ramsey in Paris, interview with actor Joaquin Phoenix at Cannes. I kind of really want this release. I don't buy really these Umbrella Collector's Edition releases, but for a movie that I like this much and I really admire this much, I may do that. There's a 48-page book with behind the scenes experiences and art with essays by Alexander Heller Nicholas. So Alexander, yeah. So our friend over here at Chasing Labels, Alexander Heller Nicholas, wrote an essay for that release. That's kind of makes me want to get it even more. But next up here is a movie that I thought was really good. Really good. I had heard of this movie for years. I had seen the DVD in stores so many times. And this is the movie called Spring, Summer, Fall, Winter, and Spring. Acclaimed director Kim Ki-duk, who also directed the movie The Isle, which I've talked about here on Chasing Labels before as well. No one is immune to the power of the seasons and their yearly cycle of birth, growth, and decay. Not even the two monks who share a hermitage floating on a pond that is surrounded by mountains. This is okay. I'm not going to really go with what they're going with here. So this movie is entirely episodic, anthological, metaphorical, thematic. So each of these movies takes place in a season, and I'm putting seasons in quotes for those of you listening who can't see me do my air quotes. So each season takes place at a different time during this young monk's life. So this movie starts out with an older monk who has taken in a young kid as his apprentice to be a monk as well. In this monastery in the middle of the mountains on a lake that is isolated in the middle of nowhere. And each of these seasons take place in a particularly part of this young monk's life. First one in spring, he's a small child. Next one, which would be summer, he is a teenager. And then in fall, he's an adult. In winter, he's an older adult. And then spring comes again. Things start over again in a way. You understand the metaphors I'm going with here. It's about the stages of life. Each sequence is a rather small amount of time, but we're getting a lot of depth within it. We're getting a lot of emotion in it. And the film is both relaxed and profoundly meaningful as well in certain segments. What a beautiful, beautiful film! Like this movie's gonna look stunning on Blu-ray. I'm very interested and very excited for this release. But yeah, I gravitated towards this type of movie a lot. For a lot of people, this is a movie where kind of nothing happens, which I kind of understand because nothing is really happening. It's not a movie where that's plot driven. It's a movie that's thematically driven. Um, so if you're looking for a movie with plot and things like that, not the movie for you. But I thought it was beautifully well done. Beautifully well done. Let's see what else we've got here. Oh, Azrael. Uh, for those of you who are looking for a horror movie to watch, that's pretty gruesome, pretty grisly, and it's brand new. Azrael is the movie for you. Many years following the apocalypse, a devout cult of mute zealots hunts down a young woman, Azrael, who's portrayed by Samara Weaving, who was in Ready or Not, and The Babysitter. She was also in the beginning of Scream 6, who has escaped her imprisonment. So what has happened is that the rapture, I think, has already occurred, and we are now in the post-rapture part of life, the dystopian future, and there are um, these creatures, these vampiric-esque monstrous creatures that are kind of roaming the earth and feeding on human people. And there's this cult that I believe worships them, or at least it's a mute cult who have all I think they've removed their vocal cords actually, so they can't talk. So this whole movie is there's no dialogue in it at all, none. So you're just watching, actions happening. Uh, Complete opposite of the movie I was just talking about. This is all plot. This is all plot. Um, yeah, and this young woman is it trying to escape this kind of savage cult that's trying to capture and sacrifice her to these monsters. And it's grisly, it is violent, it's gruesome stuff going on here. If you're into that, this is the type of movie for you. Um, Very impressive special effects, very impressive atmosphere in the movie. Good acting for having no dialogue in it. And yeah, it's an interesting take on the whole apocalypse monster trope type of thing. Let's move on from Umbrella. Let's move into the heart of our announcements. Let me see if I got anything else here that I got to talk about. Let's see, talk about all those individual ones. Nope, I can move into these. So let's go with Eureka right away because we'll go Eureka, Arrow, Criterion, and that will be our trilogy to close out the show. So Eureka, we've got 2 releases. We've got Running on Karma, and we've got The Cure in 4K. So Cure is a movie that's already been released by Criterion. It's directed by Kiyoshi Kurosawa. It's the movie from when is it, 1997? And yeah, I've talked about it many times here on the show. I don't think I need to talk about it again. So it's kind of a version of Seven, but done in Japanese cinema. So a wave of gruesome murders is sweeping Tokyo. The only connection is a bloody X carved into the neck of each of the victims. In each case, the murderer is found near the victim and remembers nothing of the crime. Detective Takabe and psychologist Sakuma are called in to figure out the connection, but their investigation goes nowhere. An odd young man is arrested near the scene of the latest murder who has strange effect on everyone who comes into contact with him. Detective Takabe starts a series of interrogations to determine the man's connection with the killings. I highly recommend this movie. If you've not seen this movie, watch it any way you can. It's perfect for this time of year. If you like Seven and you like the films of David Fincher, you'll get that vibe, and it'll, you know, you'll enjoy it. But this, like I said, is a 4K version of it, so you're getting, you know, at least better picture quality than the Criterion. Let me see. Hold on. I want to see if Yeah, there's only a Blu-ray of this movie from Criterion. Yeah, and there, yeah. So let me see what we have here for special features: 4K restoration of the film, Dolby Vision slash HDR presentation of the film. Now, if this is getting a 4K release in the UK from Eureka, chances of Criterion announcing their own 4K release is probably pretty high. So if you want to wait for that, I understand. Um, there's two archival interviews with Kiyoshi Kurosawa from 2003 and 2018. Kim Newman on Cure, interview with critic and author Kim Newman. That's kind of cool, and that's about it. It's coming out January 27th. If anyone's interested. But next is the film directed by Johnny To. The 10th film, co-directed by Johnny To and YK Fei, following a string of collaboration that included comedies, romances, action films, and historical epics. Running on Karma is a crime thriller with a distinctly Buddhist flair, starring a titan of Hong Kong cinema in Andy Lau, who was in Infernal Affairs, coincidentally, which also has a Criterion release at this point. Uh, so so Andy Lau portrays a character named Big, was once a devout religious man but turned away from his vocation as a Buddhist monk when he could no longer bear the weight of his unusual gift, the ability to see people's past lives and predict the impact of karma upon their present and future. Having found a new life as a bodybuilder, he is drawn to use his sixth sense for good after meeting Li Feng Yi, a cop investigating a homicide. But as the two grow closer and work together to catch a murderer, their relationship is complicated by the fact that Big can see Lee's past lives too. So this movie is interesting. So I'm a big fan of Johnny To. Become a big fan of Johnny To's work. Um, since we've started here on Chasing Labels, I have several of his work in my collection now. So this is probably going to be something I'll be adding. But it's an interesting movie because it feels like three movies in one. Because each act is very distinctly different or feels distinctly different. Like we said, we've got this crime drama version of where the Andy Lau character is teaming up with this person to solve these murders and stuff. Um, and then there's a middle part that's dealing with this whole idea of him being able to see her premonitions or to see her past lives, determine and make determination about her present and her future. Her future being that she's going to die. Um, and then there's a third act which goes hard left. It connects in a way, but it goes hard left into something completely different than the rest of the movie. It feels like a completely different movie. Has a twist that I am still wrapping my mind around, having seen the movie several days ago. Don't want to give it away at all. Don't want to like explain it at all. Just saying that the movie takes a harsh left turn and there's no real transition between the second and third act, other than it just kind of starts happening. So the movie has a bit of a disjointed, a bit of a tonal issue with it. And there's a big thing in the movie that kind of bothered me a bit is that Andy Lau's character is a bodybuilder, so he's a large, muscular guy. So instead of using like a body double or having Andy Lau like bulk up, like you see happen with a lot of other actors, they put him in a latex bodysuit, a muscular bodysuit, and it does not look good or believable for a good portion of the movie. Sometimes it does, but a good portion of the movie it doesn't, and sometimes it looks laughably bad. Like I thought he was wearing a Halloween costume that you would buy when you're trying to like be goofy or something. Like sometimes it looks goofy as hell, and then sometimes it looks kind of believable. Then other times it's like it's obvious he's wearing a bodysuit. That took me so far out of the movie sometimes that it bothered me. But that's just me viewing it. But if you've seen the movie or if you're going to watch the movie, be warned that Andy Lau is wearing a muscle bodysuit and it looks plastic and it looks latex and his head doesn't quite fit the proportion of the rest of his body. Um, so it looks like when they CGI people's bodies on top of like someone else's head, like in movies and like commercials and stuff and TV shows, and it's supposed to look bad and it does look bad. Like imagine that, but practically done with a latex bodysuit. And I'm like, why did you do that? Because everything else in the movie is believable and good, but that just kind of took me out of it. And Andy Lau is great, and I actually like the movie too. It's dealing with this idea of karma and fate and Buddhism and things like that, which I'm fascinated with. But man, it really took me out. That aesthetic choice was certainly a choice, certainly a choice. Um, so that's the two from Eureka. Eureka. So Running Karma is getting a 2K restoration. It's original Cantonese stereo audio, English subtitles, of course. New audio commentary by East Asian film experts Frank Zhang and F.J. DeSanto. New interview with Gary Bettinson, editor in chief of Asian Cinema Journal. Excuse me. Archival making a featurette, collector's booklet, limited edition slipcase, the usual Eureka fare. So these are coming out in January. Yeah, sorry, my eyes are starting to play funny games on me. I don't know what the heck's going on with them. So I'm having trouble reading my screen here. So next we've got Arrow, and Arrow has a nice eclectic group of movies. We'll get into them. So we've got Inglourious Basterds, the Quentin Tarantino films, getting a 4K UHD release plus a Blu-ray. The Gift, which I believe is the Sam Raimi film, is getting a 4K UHD release. Yes, that's Sam Raimi from the year 2000. A lot of interesting like Sam Raimi catalog stuff getting released from Arrow. We've got what else we got here? We've got Incubus from 1966. We have Rampo Noir from 2005. The Usual Suspects from 1995, and The Cell from the year 2000. So Inglourious Basterds, I don't think I need to talk about too much. It's the Quentin Tarantino film from 2009. It's a Quentin Tarantino film. It's the Nazi hunting film. Christoph Waltz is in the film. Brad Pitt. All kinds of stuff goes on in that movie. Michael Fassbender's in the film. You've got Melanie Laurent is in the movie as well. After we talked about it here before, Diane Kruger's in the film. Or is it just Diane Kruger? Are they both in it? I can't remember. Well, let me go to IMDb for a second. But yeah, I really like this movie. Apparently it's not everyone's favorite Quentin Tarantino film, but I feel like it's the one everyone remembers the most. Other than Pulp Fiction and Reservoir Dogs, I guess. But I feel like after those crops of movies, I feel like Inglourious Basterds is the one everyone brings up. Yeah, Brad Pitt, Eli Roth, Diane Kruger, Melanie Laurent, Michael Fassbender, Daniel Bruhl is in the film. Christoph Waltz won an Oscar for his role in the movie. He's incredible in the movie. B.J. Novak is one of the Inglourious Basterds. Mike Myers has a part in this movie as well. I think like a small scene. Yeah. So I don't need to talk about too much of that, other than it is getting quite a few extras. I already own this movie on both Blu-ray and 4K because I think Universal put it out here. But I'm curious what the difference is between special features of that release and this release. Let me see. Few seconds. Inglourious Basterds. There we go. I tell you, the 4K already looks really, really good. So I can say that it's probably going to be the same exact transfer of the one we got here. Yeah, there's already a new extra here on top. What would Sally do? A new interview with editor Fred Raskin. Blood Fiction, a new interview with special makeup effects supervisor Greg Nicotero. That's kind of cool. Doomstruck, a new interview with actor Omar Doom. Making It Right, a new visual essay by film critic Walter Chow, author of a Walter Hill film. Film History on Fire, a new visual essay by film critic scholar Pamela Hutchinson, author of BFI Film Classics Pandora's Box. Am I looking at the same thing here? Yeah, that's Inglourious Basterds. Like they're mentioning a lot of other movies that are not Inglourious Basterds. There are some crossover here as well. But yeah, there are new special features on this Arrow release. I just want to make everybody aware of that. Okay, let me move on to The Gift, the Sam Raimi film. Yeah, Kate Blanchett portrays a psychic who um, works as a tarot reader to support her young family when she is introduced to her son's affable school principal, Greg Kinnear, and his socialite fiance. Annie has a grisly premonition of things yet to come. After her violent vision comes true, all eyes turn to Annie, leaving her with no choice but to use her clairvoyant abilities to find the culprit herself. Could it be the abusive husband? Uh, or could it be somebody else, basically? I saw this movie years ago. I think I saw it on streaming on Netflix at one point. Um, that's where that's where I saw it. But I really want to get this to add to my Sam Raimi collection because I need to bulk that up a bit. It's got a new 4K restoration from the 35 millimeter interposited by Arrow Films and Shout Factory. Hmm, that's interesting. That's where I talked about this before. Shout's giving it a 4K release as well. Um, it's interesting that it's the interpositive, not the original camera negative. I would have thought that a Sam Raimi film from the year 2000, the original camera negative would be available. I don't know whether they just couldn't get their hands on it, they just couldn't find it, or whatever the case may be. But we got a brand new audio commentary by Alexandra Helen Nicholas and Josh Nelson. That in and of itself makes me want to buy this release. I believe, yeah, that's not going to be on the Shout Factory release. I don't think so. Brand new audio commentary by critic Megan Navarro, plus a bunch of other special features here. These are coming out in January. So January 13th will be Inglourious Basterds. January 27th will be The Gift. And then Incubus is getting a 4K Blu-ray. Holy hell. So my goodness. So let me read this here. So this was from 1960. Hold on, when did this come out? 1966. So this is pre Star Trek William Shatner. Wounded in battle, soldier Mark William Shatner, just prior to being in Star Trek, ventures to the remote island of Nomentum to find a well where the waters are said to be blessed with healing powers. Little does he suspect that the inhabitants of Nomentum are demonic seductresses who entice interlopers and lead them to damnation. They're succubi. They're succubi essentially. And it's him and his sister are on this island, and he ends up making contact with one of these succubi, and they end up having this kind of Romeo and Juliet romance. You know what I mean? He's a human, she's a demonic creature thing, and they're not supposed to be together, but they are. Uh, and yeah, that's kind of the premise of the movie. But the movie is like an Ingmar Bergman horror film. The way in which it's told, it's in gritty black and white. It's on this island. It is also spoken in a different language. It's spoken in Esperanto. Esperanto is this like amalgamation type of language that was made in the 19th century. So it makes this movie feel like a weird folk horror, Bergman horror film, trippy movie, um, starring William Shatner. It feel in the I believe the director was the creator of the Outer Limits. So you got this kind of, Twilight Zone-ish, Outer Limits type episode of a movie as well. Um, yeah, it's shot by Conrad Hall, who the great cinematographer Conrad Hall, who's won 3 Oscars. Um, yeah, what an interesting gem of a movie, really. Unfortunately, the version of it that I saw, which I think was streaming on YouTube, it was streaming somewhere. The quality was terrible. So having this in 4K UHD is gonna be mind blowing. So it's getting a 4K restoration from the last surviving 35 millimeter print by Le Chatki Fume. So I'm astonished by how this movie is going to look. Astonished. This is definitely kind of like a cult film. You got a new audio commentary by writer and genre historian David J. Zhou, author of The Outer Limits, the official companion. You have 2 archival interviews, one by Shatner himself. I'm curious what he has to say about this movie. Because it's definitely the most artistic film that he ever did. Oh man, it's so fascinating. What a trip of a movie! Trip of a movie. Um, yeah, there's a bunch of other special features in here as well. Yeah, so I'm curious about what this package is gonna look like and what this movie's gonna look like. Coming out January 14th. January 14th. And there's a regular Blu-ray being released of it as well. And then we got Rampo Noir. Um, So, 4 filmmakers from completely different backgrounds bring their radically personal takes to the stories of Japan's celebrated master of the macabre, Edogawa Rampo. Horrors of Malformed Men and Blind Beast. That's its credits here. So we've got 4. This is an anthology film. We've got 4 films in here, all by different directors, all incredibly different, and each of them gets increasingly more disturbing, more macabre, more horrific, more messed up, more graphic, more unhinged, more disturbing, to the point where I was like, "Oh, this is getting rough. This is getting really, really rough." Um, let me see if I can. Let me just give you guys the first one is called Mars Canal. It's by a music video director. It's very short. There's no dialogue in it whatsoever. The next film is called, um, Mirror Hell? Yeah, Mirror Hell, where there's this mirror that, when you look in it, like, burns you as if you're in a microwave. Burns you as if you're in a microwave. And this detective is trying to figure out, like, where this mirror comes from, why does it do this, why does this keep happening to people, all this kind of stuff. So apparently the detective that's in it, who's portrayed by, I think, Akio Jiso? No, no, he's the director, Japanese new wave director Akio Jiso. Um, was he direct the first film? Hold on, let me go get the actual directors of this. This is gonna bother the heck out of me. So yeah, you have directors. Oh, this is of course not helpful. Let me go to um my diary on Letterboxd. Ah, there you are, Rampo Noir. So you've got directors, Sugaro Takuchi, at Atsushi Kaneko, Hisayo Sato, and Akioji Soji. Um, and like I said, the second one is the mirror one, and then the third one is called, um, let's see. Let me go back to, it's really not easy. They're not making this easy on me whatsoever. Is called Caterpillar. Yeah, the third film is called Caterpillar, and there's this wounded, like, this wounded soldier who was being taken care of by his wife, who seemingly doesn't want to take care of him anymore, and then just basically tortures him while he's in dire state. It's pretty gruesome, messed up, unhinged, tough to watch. Um, yeah, it's pretty effed up. It gets weird. It gets very very weird, very weird. I can't explain. Um, and then the last film was called Crawling Bugs, which a famous actor is kidnapped by like her limo driver, and you can assume not good things happen after that. It gets also incredibly weird and disgusting. So that was these four movies. Um, so they are coming. It's brand new audio commentaries on here. Let's see, brand new audio commentary by Japanese film experts Jasper Sharp and Alexandra Zalton. Another World, a new interview with Sugaru Takuchi, director of Mars Canal. Moving Transformation, new interview with Hisayasu Sato, director of Caterpillar. I really want to hear that. Butterfly Queen, a new interview with Atsushi Kaneko, manga artist and director of Crawling Bugs. Hall of Mirrors, a new interview with cinematographer Masao Nakabori about working with Akio Jisoji and Mirror Hell. Yeah, yeah. So it's an anthological film that gets increasingly weird as it goes along. It's not an easy watch. I found that more disturbing than something like Cafe Flesh or Bohachi Bushido. Like I found these more disturbing. I don't know why. Next is The Usual Suspects. I don't think I need to explain this movie. It's many people have had it in their collections for years. Many people have known about it for years. Many people have seen it from when did this come out? 1990. Yeah, 1995. I think it won an Oscar for best writing. Hold on. Let's see. I'm on the IMDb page right now. Yeah, won 2 Oscars. Yeah, this movie is not yeah, this movie has not stood the best of time. So it won Best Writing Screenplay written directly for the screen by Christopher McQuarrie. This movie hasn't really stood up the test of time because the person who directed it and the person and one of the people who starred in it have their lives and careers have just gone completely south, completely south. I don't even want to mention them. I grew up, I know a lot of people have this movie in their collection. I still have it in mine on Blu-ray and on DVD, but it's not a movie I go back and rewatch anymore. It really isn't. Um, I don't even like talk about this movie anymore at all. I know a lot of people really like it. And it's still a very good movie. The story structure of it, the acting in it, the actors in it, um, are like kind of legendary at this point. You've got Gabriel Byrne, you've got Stephen Baldwin, Chaz Palminteri, Benicio del Toro, Kevin Pollak. This is an early role for Benicio del Toro. Giancarlo Esposito's in the movie. Dan Hidea's in the movie. Young Clark Gregg is in there somewhere. Yeah, good screenplay, good structure. It's a '90s neo noir. But just the director's a piece of trash, and one of the lead actors is a piece of trash. So I can't. So yeah, I can't recommend people buying it, and I can't buy it myself. Um, yeah. So let me move on past The Usual Suspects. This has also already gotten a 4K release from uh Kino. Kino put this out recently as well. Kino and Arrow have that same thing that Kino and Imprint have going on, where they seem to be putting out each other's releases or a version of each other's releases. I know they did that with Invasion of the Body Snatchers. They've done that with this movie here. Um, I know Arrow's been doing that with Shout Factory releases. We just talked about The Gift. They've put Arrow's put out their own versions of The Exorcist 2 and 3, which Shout's already put out. They put out their own version of Carrie, which Shout has already put out. A lot of people putting out the same stuff, and it really all depends on what you want. In terms of a version, in terms of an edition. Maybe there's a special feature or a commentary or a visual essay by somebody that you know and like. That's what makes you do it. Maybe the transfer's better on one release or another. Perhaps that's what sways you. It really all depends on who you are. But moving on, let's move on to The Cell. I remember when this movie came out in the year 2000. This is a movie by Tarsem Singh starring J-Lo. Jennifer Lopez in the late 90s as her star was skyrocketing up. She was doing movies. She had her music career. She had all this stuff going on. I remember when The Cell came out. This movie is going to look really good in 4K. That's at least my thing. I think this movie has a bit of a cult following now. Tarsem Singh is anything if not a really good visual director. Really good visual director. So this is getting a new 4K restoration of both the 107-minute theatrical cut and the 109-minute director's cut by Arrow Films, approved by director Tarsem Singh. I talked about last time that Umbrella is working on a 4K release of The Fall, the other Tarsem Singh film. So we're getting some good stuff here. We're getting some good stuff here. So this movie is about let's see, sublime, grotesque, and visually ravishing. Tarsem Singh's debut feature delivers on the extraordinary artistry of his work in the music video and commercials, as it takes the audience on a journey through the bizarre worlds inside the mind of a killer. When serial murderer Carl Starger, portrayed by Vincent D'Onofrio, falls into a coma with his latest victim still trapped in an unknown location and waiting to die, the FBI turns to psychologist Catherine Dean, portrayed by Jennifer Lopez, for help. Using an experimental technology, she enters the dark dreamscapes of Starger's mind, attempting to learn his secrets before it is too late. So she goes into the mind of a serial killer, a disturbed schizophrenic serial killer who's fallen into a coma. She's gone into his mind to kind of figure out where his victim is being held before, it's too late. That's the premise of the movie. But what you get is this visual feast of a film that things get weird. Things get weird inside this mind as she goes deeper and deeper into it. Yeah, what a visual feast of a film, even for the year 2000. Some of the special effects don't hold up quite as well, but still the the gall it takes to do that, you know what I mean? The gumption it takes to do that, is really kind of cool to see. Uh, Vince Vaughn is in the film as well. He plays the detective who's trying to track down the victim and who's trying to track down the serial killer as well. Vincent D'Onofrio is such a scumbag weirdo in this movie. He's really, incredibly dark, creepy role for him to pull off as well, and he does. Yeah. Let's see what we got here for special features. It's a 2-disc edition. The first disc has the feature film, and the second film has the alternate version of the movie. I think the second disc has the theatrical version. The first film has the longer version. Brand new audio commentary by film scholars Josh Nelson and Alexandra Helen Nicholas. That's awesome. Brand new audio commentary with screenwriter Mark Protasevich and film critic Kay Lynch. That's cool. That's cool. Our archive audio commentary with director Tarsem Singh. Archive audio commentary with director of photography Paul Loffer. And production designer Tom Foden, makeup supervisor Michelle Burke, costume design. You get it. All the technical people. And there's a new interview with Tarsem Singh as well. And there's a few other special features here. I'm just too tired to go through all of them. So that's definitely something I'm interested in, is The Cell. I had never seen the movie. I remember when it came out. I remember seeing trailers for it at the movie theater back in the day. I remember TV spots for it. I remember how big J-Lo was in it. I remember how much hype there was around the movie. I think it was a bit of a flop. Or did it not do well with critics, but was a box office success? I can't remember. But I remember when it was a thing. Let me see. So we've got those things cooking here. That's it from Arrow. Those are all the January Arrow releases. We've got Inglourious Basterds, The Gift, Incubus, Rampo Noir, The Usual Suspects, and The Cell. Eclectic group of things. Eclectic. We've got some horror, we've got some Sam Raimi, we've got Quentin Tarantino, we've got Japanese cinema, we have 90s neo noir, we've got the year 2000 horror thriller type of thing, psychological thriller going on. And what's interesting is that The Cell, I want to say this was at the time where Vince Vaughn was doing more serious roles. I know everyone kind of knows Vince Vaughn for being a comedian and doing comedy roles, but there was that time where he was trying to do serious roles. Before this, he of course played Norman Bates in the Gus Van Sant remake of Psycho in 1997, I think. So that's fascinating. Just a different side of Vince Vaughn. But let's move on to our grand finale of it all. Our grand finale, because we are well past the 2000, the 2 hour mark, and we are going to go with Criterion. Criterion, like I said, the day after our last episode, October 15th, they announced their releases for January. We've got Winchester 73. We've got The Grifters. We've got JoJo Dancer, Your Life is Calling. And then we have The Mother and the Whore. And then we've got Yojimbo / Sanjuro, two samurai films by Akira Kurosawa. Here we go. Winchester 73, for me, is a nice surprise to the point where it moved me to tears. Winchester 73. I've been waiting for like a decade for a Blu-ray release for this. Longer. Since I've been collecting Jimmy Stewart films, since I've been collecting Anthony Mann films, I've been waiting for Winchester 73 to get a Blu-ray release or to get an HD release. And here we have it on 4K UHD, and it's coming in January. I can't wait. It's the last of the Jimmy Stewart, Anthony Mann actor-director tandem films to get a HD release. It got them overseas, but I'm talking about in Region A land specifically. So in Region A lands for me. So we got a new 4K digital restoration by Universal Pictures. Okay, let's see what they do in there. Audio commentary with actor Jimmy Stewart and film historian Paul Lindenschmidt. The fact that we have an audio commentary by Jimmy Stewart himself is kind of awesome to me. I know Jimmy Stewart, I think he passed away in 1997. So that would have been right before DVDs were coming into focus. That would be right before the DVDs format would start happening, because that happened around that time. So maybe he recorded an audio commentary for a Laserdisc version of the movie, perhaps. That would be my only thing. Of why this would be recorded, because VHS didn't have audio commentaries typically. I don't think ever really. But we've got a new interview with programmer Adam Peron on the portrayal of Native Americans in the Western genre. So we've had Adam Peron here on Chasing Labels. He works at Sundance. I think he's the director of Indigenous films at Sundance, if I remember correctly. So we had him here. He was actually also in the Criterion Closet as well a while ago. But we've had him here on Chasing Labels. There's a Lux Radio Theater adaptation of the film from 1951. This is like I said, it's kind of a Western noir. Noir shadows spread across the frontier in this landmark Western, the first of the celebrated collaborations between director Anthony Mann and actor James Stewart that redefined the genre with their moral and psychological intensity, beginning his mid-career transition into increasingly edgy roles. Stewart portrays an avenging sharpshooter whose stolen rifle becomes a harbinger of death as it is passed from one doomed hand to the next, featuring a stellar cast that includes a touching Shelley Winters, a sensational sleazy Dan Durea, and pre-stardom Rock Hudson. Oh, this is the movie where Rock Hudson portrays an indigenous person. Talking about whitewashing to the extreme. I believe it is. This elemental tale of violence begetting violence broke new ground with its evocation of the West as a no man's land of anti-heroes and villains. This was the start of the like I said, this mid-career transition for Jimmy Stewart after, because he had served in World War II. So this is after he had served in World War II. His experiences during World War II changed him and changed his focus of where he wanted his career to go. So he started doing more serious, edgier roles like westerns. That's where you saw this. The pre-World War II Jimmy Stewart roles were the stuff he had done with like Frank Capra. You know what I mean? Were those types of movies. Those more idealistic types of films. These are more grayish films in terms of morality and tone and themes and things like that. Man, I'm so freaking happy for this. I can't even begin to tell you people. But that is Winchester 73. About damn time. Next, we have Stephen Frears' The Grifters. I haven't seen this movie in over a decade. I have the old Echo Bridge Blu-ray release here in my collection that I bought probably 2012, probably around then. I have it here. Special features has a commentary and behind the scenes, but nothing else on here. Nothing else on here. But this is a 4K release from Criterion. It's a 4K release from Criterion. It's got a new. The cover art is done by Drusilla Adeline / Sister Hyde, who has also been a guest here on Chasing Labels as well. So that's really awesome to see them getting more work done in the Criterion collection. They've done work on other films. I remember The Elephant Man and Martin Scorsese shorts. They did the cover art for that. But this is another 90s neo-noir, but directed by Stephen Frears, who did My Beautiful Laundrette. He did the hit. He did that movie Philomena with Judi Dench, which I thought was really, really good. Great screenplay there. A dark-hearted neo-noir into a boil under the bright Los Angeles sun in British director Stephen Frears' rousing adaptation of the novel by dime store bard Jim Thompson. A film that raises pulp to the realm of existential tragedy. A possessive mother, Angelica Houston, her cynical son, John Cusack, and his scheming, seductive girlfriend, Annette Bening, are career swindlers circling one another in an elaborate emotional confidence game that grows increasingly perverse as love and trust turn to betrayal and Oedipal undercurrents rise to the surface. In Frears' first Hollywood film, the ever-assured director and his trifecta of magnetic actors conjure a moody, unstuck in time vision of toxic Americana. That's a lot right there. I've always liked Stephen Frears' work. I've always liked his stuff. I think I've always had a Stephen Frears collection section in my collection. So this is a high recommend for me. It's a shame it's not coming out for Noirvember next month. It would be perfect for that. But such is the case. He also directed Dirty Pretty Things. He directed The Queen. Dangerous Liaisons is another Stephen Frears film. But yeah, I'm excited to upgrade this. I really am. I haven't seen the movie, like I said, in probably a dozen years. New 4K restoration. Approved by director of photography Oliver Stapleton. Audio commentary featuring Stephen Frears and actors John Cusack, Angelica Houston, screenwriter Donald E. Westlake. The interview with actor Annette Bening. That's awesome. Short making of documentary featuring Cusack, Frears, Houston, Westlake, and production designer Dennis Gassner. Seduction, Betrayal, Murder. The making of the Grifters. That's cool. So that's the Grifters. Awesome. Next, we've got an interesting film called JoJo Dancer Your Life is Calling. And this is directed by Richard Pryor, starring also Richard Pryor. And the movie is kind of a pseudo autobiography or autobiopic, if you will. And in the movie, Richard Pryor plays somebody who's telling his life story in his rise as to being a comedian, and also the pitfalls that it has when it comes to abuse of drugs and alcohol and things like that, and how that led to his personal downfall in many of its aspects. So it's a very personal movie from Richard Pryor's perspective, for him having to be very honest with himself and be very open when it comes to portraying his abuse of things like drugs and things like that. And the movie's tonally kind of all over the place because it's supposed to be comedic but also serious, and the balance isn't always quite there. Um, and it bounces around when it comes to time frame and things like that. So, um, one of the greatest comedians of all time, Richard Pryor, gets raw and real in this brutally funny and lacerating self portrait. Well, both things relatively true, I guess. Following the notorious incident in which he caught on fire while high on cocaine, nearly losing his life, Pryor exercises his inner demons by writing, producing, directing, and starring in this dizzyingly Hall of Mirrors biopic and backstage drama, which traces a young comedian's rise to fame from his childhood growing up in a brothel to the colorful experience that shaped his edgy comic voice, to the addiction struggles that brought him to the brink of death. Basically everything I just said. It's all of those things in one, and the movie's trying to juggle all of these things, and I don't think it quite does a good job of juggling all of these things, but you do get the overall story across. You do get the rise and personal fall and all this kind of stuff. It's one of those films that's also framed in a way which we've seen before, where it's someone looking back at their life and taking stock of the good and the bad. We've seen it you know, in Ikiru. We've seen it in Wild Strawberries. We've seen it all the way up to this day. It's a framing mechanism, like I said, we've seen before. It's got a new 4K digital restoration. It's got a new interview with film. New interview on the film with filmmaker Robert Townsend. That's cool. He's got his film Hollywood Shuffle is in the collection. An interview with director Richard Pryor from 1985 episode of the Dick Cavett Show. That's really cool. And that's it. Wow, that's all we get. Just those two special features. Not even an audio commentary. Okay, okay. And then last here is unfortunately a movie I have not seen. Um, is The Mother and the Whore. I did not get to see this. It is streaming on the Criterion channel. It's coming out in 4K UHD. It's 219 minutes long. And so I didn't have the time to do it. 218 minutes long. Sorry, I apologize. 1973 French film. Um, I want to watch it, but I didn't have the time. Sorry, that's nearly 4 hours. That nearly 4 hours. After the French New Wave, the sexual revolution, and the upheavals of May 1968 came the near religiously revered magnum opus by Jean Eustache. In this long unavailable body of work, ranging from documentaries about his native village to closely autobiographical narrative films, Eustache pioneered a forthright and fearless brand of realism. The pinnacle of this innovative style, The Mother and the Whore, follows Alexander, portrayed by Jean-Pierre Léaud, a Parisian pseudo-intellectual who lives with his tempestuous girlfriend, Marie Bernadette Lafont, even as he begins a dalliance with a sexually liberated Veronica, Françoise Lebrun, leading the three into an emotional, turbulent love triangle. Through daringly sustained long takes and confessional dialogue, Eustache captures a generation navigating the disillusionment of the 1970s, and in the process achieves an intimacy so deep it cuts. I really want to see this movie, but I need like 4 hours of my time to really delve into it, and I didn't really have that 4 hours of time to really delve into it in preparation for chasing labels here. But perhaps I will relatively soon. So you've got a new interview with actor Françoise Lebrun, new conversation with filmmaker Jean-Pierre Gorin and writer Rachel Kushner, program on the film's restoration, segment from the French television series Pour le Cinéma featuring Lebrun, director Jean Eustache, and actors Bernadette Lafont and Jean-Pierre Léaud. I'm assuming that's archival. Um, and then, yeah, that's it. That is it. It's a new 4K digital restoration as well. So that is it from Criterion when it comes to their January titles. Coming soon. I've got no clue what we're talking about, but I'm digging it. Oh, Maki, what were you talking about? What were you talking about? What was I talking about? Because I just started rambling. When it hits the 2 hour and 2.5 hour mark, my mind just starts to melt. So I'm like, what am I rambling about? So cheery. Oh. Oh, good night, Humboldt Horror Honey. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for your support. Um, yeah, I hope I have a spooky Halloween as well. I got a lot of Halloween candy that I'm supposed to save, but who knows? Who knows what happens? Three Musketeers do call my name. Um, let's see. Yeah, I have no idea what I was talking about at the 11:50 mark. At 11:50. But yeah, whatever it was, it sounded cheery. But yeah, when it reaches the 2.5 hour mark here on Chasing Labels, my mind tends to wander, and it just becomes rambling time, really. But as I said, that is it for um Chasing Labels because my eyes are dry as the desert, as they say. Uh, that is it for Criterion. We have Winchester 73, The Grifters, JoJo Dancer, Your Life is Calling, The Mother and the Whore. Oh, I forgot to talk about this. Yojimbo slash Sanjuro, the two samurai films. Oh, Kurosawa. Oh, what am I doing? Um, so Yojimbo and Kurosawa and Sanjuro, different movies, both starring Toshiro Mifune, both are samurai films. I've had these in my collection for like 14 years. I'm ecstatic that I'll be able to upgrade them finally because I think my discs may have disc rot on them. So I'm glad that I waited to replace them to get the 4K UHD discs. Um this is so Yojimbo specifically is the movie that um A Fistful of Dollars is the remake of. Uh, so, thanks to perhaps the most indelible character in Akira Kurosawa's oeuvre, Yojimbo surpassed even Seven Samurai in popularity when it was released. The masterless samurai Sanjuro, who slyly manipulates two warring clans to his own advantage and a small dusty village, was so entertainingly embodied by the brilliant Toshiro Mifune that it was only a matter of time before he returned in a sequel. Made just 1 year later, Sanjuro meets Yojimbo's storytelling dexterity, yet adds a layer of world weary pragmatism that brings the two films to a thrilling and unforgettable conclusion. So, same character. So, same character of who's called Sanjuro. Um, yeah, it's these two movies are masterpieces. They're masterpieces by Kurosawa, who was a master, starring Toshiro Mifune, who was one of the best to ever do it in terms of Japanese cinema, in terms of samurai cinema, all of those things. I could go on and on, but I'm I'm just too damn tired. I actually did. Um. Oh yes, I was. I was talking about Richard Pryor, Mackie. I was talking about Richard Pryor, who one time, and this is true life story, is one time Richard Pryor, the famous comedian, was you know he was kind of really, he had a really bad drug problem. Is that he lit himself on fire one time by accident because he was so high, he didn't know what he was doing. Um, and it led to him making this movie the about him recollecting his life and his challenges and his personal demons and things like that. That's kind of an interesting story, an interesting background story to that movie. And he does that in the movie. That's how the movie kind of starts. Is him doing that, and then him being in a coma and having an out of body experience of him recalling his entire life from childhood through his rise in the comedy world and then downfall with personal drugs. That's really that movie. Um, it takes a lot to I think, you know, expose like put yourself out there, expose your demons. You know what I mean? Especially on a movie level. You know what I mean? Where millions of people are going to watch it for decades to come. So yes, that's what I was talking about. That's what I was talking about. Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, I don't think that incident is, completely isolated to just Richard Pryor. Drug addiction, alcohol addiction, things like that, um, have bad consequences. Bad consequences. S- yeah, wild stuff, sad stuff too. Um, let's see. So as I was saying, um, Yojimbo and Sanjuro must buys if you're Akira Kurosawa fans. And so that is it. Now that is officially it. Let's see. We're at the 3 hour mark in 1 minute and 10 seconds. I think I will cut it off here. For those of you who stuck with me the whole way, thank you for sticking with me. For those of you watching on the replay, thank you for watching the replay. For those of you listening in the audio realm, thank you for listening in the audio realm. We went over stuff from so many people today: Criterion, Arrow, Eureka, Kino, um, Imprint, Umbrella, bunch of people, uh, bunch of companies doing a lot of stuff in the boutique label world. The next time we meet, which will be in 2 weeks' time, we will have the Vinegar Syndrome and their partner label slate, plus whatever else gets announced in the next 2 weeks. I'm pretty sure we're going to have Kino. I'm pretty sure we'll have some other stuff to talk about. For those of you celebrating Halloween coming up this Thursday, have a safe and fun time. Eat that candy and that chocolate respectively. No, responsibly. That's what I want to say. Responsibly. Watch good horror movies this week or whatever. But thank you all for joining me. And you can find this on YouTube. You can find it also where you can listen to any podcast, Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, places like that. So, thank you thank you all for once again. And hey, keep on watching those movies because I know I will.